Mortal Realms, an Age of Sigmar story phase. Grab your hammer so we can clear a path through the chaos and forge our own narratives in the Age of Sigmar. Your allies on the hunt this episode are...
Hey, my name is Paul, and I just can't think of a pun this week. I'm sorry. I'm just totally out.
I don't believe you.
I mean, I am. I was literally going through.
I'm waiting for
I
it.
could make a joke about this, but it was so niche. I was literally going to make a joke about the fact that there's a F1 racer whose last name is Hunt, as the long hunt. But I was like, this is so freaking niche. Nobody's ever going to get it. Because it's been 1976 is the last time he won the F1 Racers Championship. So, there you go. There's my pun. Appreciate it.
I'm still not convinced this isn't one long bit.
I feel like this is a setup still.
Hey, it's Paven. Back for another one of these. What is the poetic meter that Vandis Hammerhand feels kind of mixed feelings about? Yeah, it's Iona's pentameter.
Nice.
And I'm Will, and I also don't have a pun, but I am going to have to owe some money here in a little bit. Because when the Crusade left Hammerhall, and the greatest miracle of all is when Ionis and his best friend Vandis came together for the longest hunt.
And I'm Aaron, and living in Wisconsin, I'm pretty sure all hunts are way too long. It's cold out there, and it's also redundant. Anyways, in this episode... we are not starting off on a great track right here because this is ridiculous. In this episode, we cover the lore of Dawnbringers, the Long Hunt. Friends become enemies. Enemies become friends. The real Dawnbringer Crusade is the friends we made along the way who then became enemies. As you might expect, the Dawnbringers keep their friends close and their enemies closer. And with friends like these, who even needs enemies in the first place? The Dawnbringers, that's who. I think you guys get the idea. Tonight, how are you all, you diminishing souls? That's you guys.
I'm doing good.
I actually did have a pun lined up, but I figured everybody was going to use it.
Okay, I can splice it in, I guess.
Who has the Infinity Gauntlet?
Bell Thanos.
There you go. Thank you.
There we go.
Nailed it. Yep, you're really running the risk that everyone was going to use.
Yeah, everyone was.
I was like, everybody's going to use this one because it's so obvious, and then nobody used it.
Nope.
Hey, Paven, how are you doing?
I'm doing great.
I'm glad to hear it. We're off to such a great start tonight. And Will, how about yourself?
I'm doing good, and
Nice.
I know we've gone kind of crazy with the intro, but it makes sense that for the longest hunt, we have the longest intro. So
We're just dragging this out. All right, let's get through it. Let's muscle our way through, and let's get to the first thing that we normally talk about, which is, hey, what have you guys been doing up in the old hobby lately? Let's do the same order. Hey, Paul, what you been hobbying on these days?
I have been painting up Bell Thanos, and
Thanos.
I love him. He is an absolutely fantastic, gorgeous model. I had to convert him because I have to convert everything, but particularly because all my Sylvan have 6 limbs. And also, there was actually, in my opinion, a lore reason to convert him, because they talk about how there's these thorn arrows that appear in the lore, but nobody's actually firing them. So I actually gave him a bow so he could be the one firing the thorn arrows.
oh,
Don't you use lore for evil, Paul? Don't you try and turn my precious lore against me?
That's legitimately my entire purpose in life. I mean, it is what it is.
Mission accomplished. All right, very cool. Working on anything else worth noting?
Trug, finishing off Trug. So
All right, just
I got
trugging along.
2 heavy hitters.
It's true. Now you gotta make them fight, make them kiss. Hey, Paven, what are you up to in the hobby?
I'm doing a little bit of Eldar. I'm doing a little bit of Warhammer Underworlds warbands. I did a lot of terrain, and now I'm stressing out because we got Mortal Realms Con.
Woo!
5 days? 4 days? Oh,
It's way too soon. I'm not
think about it.
close. Get my stuff done.
I was going to think about that after we record the podcast, not before.
Yeah. I was definitely like, what am I doing committing to a podcast this week? I have no
You and me both, because I also have to edit it whilst trying to get my stuff painted. I added an extra day off of work just today so that I could like try and squeeze some stuff in. So,
Nice.
I mean, don't tell.
Yeah,
work. It's for a real reason. Work.
let's all quit our jobs.
Yeah.
I
Fingers
have a
crossed.
mental health day where I need to paint bloody skulls all day long.
We can only quit our jobs if you, the patrons, helped us out. Anyways,
Yeah. Oh, how short are we for our patron goal for we all quitting our job? Just a few short. Patrons,
Sure.
It could be you. Put us over the edge.
I couldn't take an hour off of work for what the Patreon is covering, right? Hey, Will, what you up to in the old hobby?
So first, I've been working on my Cities of Hob Iron Roll Great Cannon that Games Workshop sent us. Thank you. So it's just cool Hobgrots manning a big cannon. Very minimal conversion work.
I mean,
just to
you
make
did
sure that they're
cut off
holding tools.
both sides of the front of the cannon. I mean,
You
And the
did
top
what?
side.
You did what?
that's not minimal. That's like
And then I also cut off hands off the people so I can put their hands on the Hobgrots.
You guys are killing me.
Minimal.
looks awesome.
And on top of that, I painted up Ionis Cryptborn in the colors of the Stormscale Covenant, which is my dragon-themed Stormcast. So just felt too fitting.
I feel like you're really burying the lead there. That's my jam. No, I'm into that.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I also convert all of my Stormcast Covenant models to have dragon heads, but I didn't this time because this head is too good. So just paint the plastic.
All right, so what have I been doing in the hobby? Still corn stuff. Did I say corn stuff last time? I can't remember. But
I think you did.
Preparation for Mortal Realms Con. I'm doing every Fleshhound thing that I own, which I'm pretty sure is everything. Painting it all up to make a little, because we're doing Underworlds, so I got to get, I'm sorry, forgive me if I already said this, but Underworlds, so I got to do, what's his name? Magor's Fiends. Doing Warcry, so I got to get a Claws of Karanak. Look at me just rattling off names like I know stuff. And then in Path to Glory, we got to get, he's not Korgus Call, but it's just the Mighty Lord of Khorne with a Fleshhound plus Karanak and then a fiber of Fleshhounds. So this is kind of fun. Except, guys, I'm going to tell you a horror story. You want to hear something? It's going to scare you. It's
God.
appropriate for the season, the Halloween
Oh no!
season.
Did you
You're gonna get
convert
spooked.
something? Did you convert something?
F no. And I can say that because it's not a swear. So here's what I did is at one point I had painted up some dudes, like I think Blood Reavers or something. And I had used Flesh Terrors Red. But at some point I got it mixed up and I had pulled out my Blood Angels Red halfway through, not noticing what was going on. And I've just now discovered my discrepancy. And now some of my dudes Flesh Terrors Red. The other set of dudes, Blood Angels Red. I might as well throw them all in the trash. I might as well
Basically.
stomp on them because what a colossal mix-up. This is why
I'm going to double down
Buddy.
that you converted your models because you painted them with the wrong color paint.
Ugh, it's so gross. I feel terrible about this. It's Mortal Realms Con. People told me not to do it. They said, Aaron, don't do it. It's a dumb idea, and they were right. So yeah, this is where I'm at.
But here we are.
4 days out. Though this won't be released beforehand. So that's what I've been doing in the hobby. Anybody else doing anything else that they feel like sharing?
I am going to try and get another table painted from the Maw Pit from Hunter and the Hunted, along with a couple of the dragons from the Gur terrain box set that I have. See if I can get that all set and done. We'll see. Bofanos is finished, so I'm happy with that. But
Finished. Should we put a picture of it in some sort of show notes? Maybe I don't know. We can talk about that after the fact. I don't want to make any promises.
yeah, I think we should do. I think there's a discussion to be had about posting all of our stuff like on the website or on the Discord and some
We need a
thing.
social media manager is what we do. So, hey, listeners, if you're interested in the unpaid internship of social media manager, please let me know. Actually, that kind of is sort of a segue into some Mortal Realms plugs. Guys, we're going to do a story phase momentarily, but I got some very interesting information for you listeners. For example, you can find more episodes of this podcast and all our other shows at themortalrealms.com. You can get ready for this. You can email us your feedback at mortalrealms@gmail.com. There is no the in that email address. And you know who knows that there's no the in that email address?
Who?
a listener who sent us an email. Here's the deal.
What?
I had no intention of reading emails. That's not really a gimmick or a bit that I want to do on the show. But you know what? It's been so long since we got one. And this individual was so kind to send us one that I feel like, you know what? Maybe I'll read it. Plus it's short. I'll read a little email. So we got a message from Seth A. He knows who he is. He writes, listening to episode 84, and you guys said you need feedback. So I think you guys are awesome. Seth, thanks for awesome, you guys. Just started building a Stormcast Eternals army, and I can't wait to get the dice rolling myself. Hopefully your team is having a fun October, smiley face. Cheers, Seth. Hey, Seth. Thanks for the email. I didn't respond via email, and you're probably wondering, hey, those jerks, they didn't even respond. I sent this email, and they didn't get back. Hey, I'm doing you one better. I'm reading you on the show. Do you guys have anything to say to Seth for sending us a cool email?
Hi, Seth. Thank you.
I appreciate the smiley face. I think that's pretty awesome.
Sure. I wouldn't have known his tone otherwise. So like the smiley face really cemented it. Hey, Seth, I appreciate it. Hey, listeners, I make no promises if you send me emails that I will or will not read them on the show unless they're particularly funny. So there's that. Now let's get back to the notes and back to my spiel. You can find our Patreon at patreon.com/themortalrealms to support the show, get early releases of the story phase, and access semi-exclusive or sometimes exclusive content like the Pocket Realms, which are short story phases by Davey and myself. We have not done one in a while, but I'm soon. I swear to God, soon. And also, Warhammer Bros with Paven and his brother. Hint, 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 Paven.
Listen, I'll give you a Warhammer Bros update. Okay, here's the thing. The premise of the show, for those that haven't listened, is that me trying to convince my brother to play Warhammer with me, and it's getting tough. He got really busy, and he hasn't been doing any of his Warhammer, and now he feels guilty for not doing his Warhammer, which I told him is part of Warhammer.
Yeah, I was going to say.
That's an integral component to it.
He's a true Warhammer.
He's like, I haven't painted my army yet. I couldn't show myself to the listeners. I'm like, I think they'll understand.
Does he know what I do on a monthly basis?
I think you should listen to, a podcast about Warhammer to see how many people do not paint Warhammer.
Yeah. So I gotta reel him back in. So I'm working on it.
Can't wait. Just can't wait. Where is I? And if you can't or don't want to pitch in monetarily, that's totally cool. Then head on over to your podcast service of choice and give us a review, or like a star rating. Or I think there's some places where you can leave comments on stuff. So like you could do that too. Or just go ahead and tell a friend about the Mortal Realms. That friend will tell a friend, and that friend will tell a friend, and we will take over the world. So yeah, there's the little spiels. And then we're going to get into the story phase. We're going to talk about Dawnbringers, The Long Hunt. But last thing before we do is we got to say, hey, GW sent us the book so that we could review it and talk about it with you fine folks. And so to that, we would say, hey, thanks, Dubs.
Yes. Also, thank you for sending the first Thorn as well, because I didn't mention that.
All right, cool. We've been dancing around the subject for a while. Let's get into the story phase. That's what everybody's here for. Hey, Paul, would you be so kind as to take us there?
The story phase. In the story phase, we delve into the stories, characters, creatures, and environments of the 9 realms.
Hey, all right, so story phase, we're here. We made it. Whew, close one. So what is this, the third of our Dawnbringers books? That's exciting. We made it this far. Over halfway, perhaps halfway? Who's to say? In our series here. Again, I know folks have been following along closely at home. We don't need to catch those people up, but let's pretend like there are people who have never listened to a Mortal Realms episode before. They don't know the first thing about Dawnbringers, and for whatever reason, they picked this episode to start. Let's try quickly, so very, very quickly, try and catch people up as to where we are currently, and you can define that in any way you would like as long as it is fast. Hey, guys, what do folks need to know going into this book?
Number 1, this is book 3, so we got book 1 and book 2. We also have a lot of stuff that's kind of in between as well. So you want to kind of check out Warhammer Community, you want to check out White Dwarf, you want to check out a bunch of other things to get those like little things that connect through. And we're probably going to be talking about a couple of those in this episode. So FYIs.
You guys will be talking about those things because Lord knows I have not read those.
As far as where we are in the story in book 3, we are following the Twin-Tailed Crusade. The city of Hammerhall has launched 2 crusades, one into the realm of life, Gyran, one into the realm of fire. Actually, things are not going well. The realm of fire had to fight off a bunch of giant Troggoths led by King Trug, and the Gyran crusade had to fight off a bunch of giants led by King Broad.
Did we talk about how it was the reign of Bruce? It didn't even occur to me that it was two different kings.
Yeah, right.
That's fun. Or reign. And also Reigns and Guy ran too with the raid. It's just a play on words, and I love it. Yeah. So what else? Any other things that folks need? I mean, that's a great foundational bedrock. Fun little tidbits that people want to make sure that they recall.
I mean, one of the things is that we are talking about a Dawnbringer Crusade, which is a 3rd edition thing for sure. 3rd edition being the era of the Beast in Age of Sigmar, and they are going out to try and reclaim lands that have been claimed before by Sigmar, but now have been controlled by other things. So it very much is a crusade, and that's kind of a big part of this this lore for this book in particular, is that there's an obligation to do this. So it's interesting to see how they move that forward and how they adapt that in this book, in my opinion.
Yeah, true. All right, like the two previous books, this one is basically split in half, right? Like it has, it's a book of 2 parts, focusing on both the Axian and the Gyranian.
You mean a tale of 2 cities?
Yeah.
Yes,
No, it's one city.
Or a city with 2 tails.
Yeah, a city with...
Hold, there's a joke in there somewhere. What? It's not a tale of 2 cities. It's the cities with 2 tails. Oh, that's fun. That's great. I'm sure someone else has made that. Literally, you just a second ago has made.
Yeah, I was gonna say. You're gonna edit my part out.
Yeah, no, right? Oh God, everyone laughs and laughs. All right. So let's then focus in the order that it was. We received it. The Axian Crusade.
So, all right. Let's zoom out. Let's talk about how it's going in Hammerhall, because they've gotten news about how the Crusades went in the last book, which we've covered is bad. They got their butts kicked and they just run away, which is not a good place for a Crusade to be. They've lost 2 major strongholds. Truce Break and Fort Gardus have both fallen. So we're actually down 2 cities.
Mm-hmm.
So at best, we're breaking even.
I was going to say, these states have to find 2 yet again. They have to found 4 cities to like come out ahead.
Yeah. And so they talk about how things are going in Hammerhall, which is where these Crusades originated. People are unhappy. The Crusades were kind of unpopular, or at least controversial when they were launched. And this is just adding fuel to that flame. However, in Hammerhall, actually, especially, religious zeal is running hot. So people are feeling pretty fanatical about things generally. And so that's keeping morale up. But, fanaticism can get out of hand. Particularly what has added fuel to the flame is Pontifex Zenestra, who's part of one of the Crusades, did a really cool flaming wheel move to save the Crusade at the end of the last book. And so people are pumped about that. But especially the cult of the wheel, which is the part of the Sigmar cult that she is a part of, which is the dumb cult, because they don't believe in using wheels. They just believe in holding them up.
The wheel is a symbol. It's not a.
The wheel is a symbol, and it's not supposed to be used for locomotion. Something so base. So they're real idiots.
Real dumb for that invention.
Yeah, and so they're messing stuff up in the city because they're getting all excited. And so that's going on. Also, there was a short call out to our friend Zane Dolores, who is the Grand Conclave's hidden hand, kind of spy master, FBI kind of type guy, who just got everybody to stop burning people. And now, now that like you got the wheel group up in arms, or up, just too excited. So things are going okay, but not great on the home front.
They're wheel crazy there, that's for sure.
Very good.
So I had a question. And my question was, we have Pontifex Zenestra, right? Who is the character who is actually on the Dawnbringer Crusade. But then we have Supreme Pontifex Elethris Vinx, which is a character, I don't know if we've had her mentioned before, but she's the one back in the city. And my understanding was that Pontifex Zenestra was the leader of the Wheel of the Cult. But now we have this other Supreme Pontifex. that apparently is not the leader of the cult, but is also definitely approving what's going on at the cult. Does that make sense?
So the cult of the wheel is just one aspect of the cult Unberogen of all the different faiths that worship Sigmar. And you're right, Pontifex Sinestra, she is the matriarch of the wheel. So I think this Elithris Vinx is the person in charge of all of the cults.
Yes.
So they're just like, you know what? One cult is doing cool. I'm here for it. Rising tide lifts all boats. Let's do this.
Yeah, that was kind of my point, is that she seems to be adopting this other position. And so even though she's the Supreme Pontifex, we have potentially this power struggle going on where the leader of the wheel of the cult is actually kind of telling the Supreme Pontifex what's going on. So I thought that was fun and a little bit of intrigue, if it were.
Can you say the Supreme Pontifex's name again?
The Supreme Pontifex's name is Elithris Vinx.
Vinx, okay. So apparently there is a Pontifex in the Harbinger's book whose name was Fente, and that's apparently another Pontifex.
Was that the one that got killed?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I haven't memorized the names, but we had a kind of a cleaning house that happened between Dawnbringers 1 and Dawnbringers 2.
Yeah, and it's funny that's what like Zane Delorius is talking about, because he helped Talia do the coup against that person because they were too zealous, and now he's seeing it happen again, but Talia's cool with it, so he can't do anything about it.
He's like, literally, I just put out this fire, and now people are just stealing wheels left and right all across Hammerhall, and like, come on, what's going on?
And then We Didn't Start the Fire starts playing in the background. Okay.
You owe me $1. Come on.
Well, I didn't sing it though, so it's fine.
I want to quickly talk about the cutaway that happens before we jump into the Action Crusade.
Please. Yeah.
So this is a quick, scene change. We're in Carcass Dance in Gur, which is the former homeland of Kragnos and his people. And Kragnos, the god of earthquakes, and Gobsprak, the head cruel boy.
Yeah, the mouth of Mork.
The mouth of Mork. Yeah, the mouth of Mork are trying to bust through a cliff with an army of cruel boys. And they're looking for a realm gate to maybe Kragnos' people are there? Question mark?
Maybe.
Maybe. And they bust through, and they're going to go through. And oh god, I don't think. Okay, yeah, and they make it through, I guess, is all that happens.
Yeah.
Yep.
It doesn't allude to anything yet, but we have one clever guy, and we have one guy known to be tricked. And so I was just like, is Kragnos going to get tricked again?
Is he going to learn his lesson? Yeah.
Not even.
We'll get into it later, I guess.
Well, and the thing is, like with these cutaways, they had one in the Harbinger's book with they had them like with Callus and Toll throughout the book, and then they like never actually showed up in the story. And I'm sure the same thing's going on. They're not just going to throw someone like Kragnos in later in this book. So
as an afterthought to the main plot of the story. No, of course not.
That would never happen. It didn't happen in the last edition. It's not going to happen in this edition. I'm just telling you.
I sure hope people don't hate that narrative or that device that we use regularly.
If they don't like it, then oops.
They stopped listening a long time ago.
Everybody has stopped listening well before this point. So
True.
I didn't even have a pun. I mean, come on.
All right. Anything else that we need to get out of the way before?
They talk about Hammerhall Gyra a little bit. They talk about Radagast and the Ediver Queen may have battled. Also, people are upset there, but not as nuts. Mm-hmm. They do mention that people are going missing when they cross the Storm Rift, which is the realm gate between the two sides. So that's just more foreshadowing. We don't know why.
I was going to say, and like they talk about how in the previous book, Gardas Steel Soul died fighting King Broad, R.I.P., and they're having the funerals, and it's just crazy that the Gyran side lost an important figure like Gardas, and the Akshi side lost an important figure in all of their wheels being stolen. And I feel like it's an equal footing of loss.
Well, because it's one Gardas and like thousands of wheels.
Exactly.
And Gardas will come back. So
right.
Man, Henry Ford would not have survived in Hammerhall, actually, is all I'm going to say. Like, just imagine the one guy who's like, I got this great idea. We're just going to make a bunch of carts. And then all of a sudden the crusade happens. It's like, well, crap. There goes my whole investment.
You can have whatever storm host you want as long as it's black. That was him, right? Did I make that joke?
Yes. No, that was great. That was
nailed it.
Perfect.
Nice. Just comedy gold here. All right, cool. Good. I had not seen any of your guys' notes above the action thing until right now. So now I understand why we're doing this. Okay, I get it. Thank you for that. Any other thoughts about pre-Crusade stuff?
There is one quick thing, which is that this is point 1 of point 2 that I'm going to make. If you read book 2, which why would you not read book 2? Or, hey, if you listen to our podcast about book 2 of Dawnbringers, you might know something going on about the Iron Jaws. But there's a weird thing here where I don't think we're going to talk about Iron Jaws in this episode. But if you want to know what happened to the Iron Jaws in the last episode, before this episode happens, which is book 2 to book 3, I know it's super confusing. But you know what happened? There was a White Dwarf that was released between the two, and the White Dwarf actually has a story that says, hey, here's what happened to those Iron Jaws. So Pavend, I don't know if you know this, but there's a little bit more story in White Dwarf about your favorite faction.
In the most recent one?
Yeah.
In the one before, actually. So episode, I believe it is number 492, if I put it correct.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Correct.
All right, I'll track it down.
Less confusing. Is it what happened to the Iron Jaws after they went chasing off to the Stormcast, or was this before?
Well,
that?
actually, this is what happened in the city of Fort Gardus after the city was taken, like broken into. But beforehand, there's basically this like whole thing going on where a bunch of Iron Jaws are like, hey, we want to keep fighting. And also the leader who's like, hey, we should maybe make some like intelligent decisions and maybe try and figure out how we're going to have like, you know, the best job killing people. But a bunch of the pigs are like, screw that. Like, we're going to go through this realm gate and like hang out and do some fun stuff over here. And the guy who's the main character in the narrative is like, I'm staying here and we're going to have some other stuff going on. So in the end of these books, we've had these little like kind of paragraphs, couple paragraph things saying, hey, there are these other things going on. That's basically what we get here for the Iron Jaws. So I thought it was super cool to inject that. And also, here's another kind of note. If you haven't listened to our episodes yet, you might want to go back and listen to them, because if you're going to listen to Warhammer TV, they actually have some spoilers about what happens in book 2 in the latest Lore Masters. So, hey, yeah, exactly. They talked about what happened to Fort Gardus with King Broad, and they talked about what happened to Trucebreak with Shrug. So GW is like going super current with what's going on as far as all of their media releases are. So FYIs.
Paul did leave out a very important note of what happens in the White Dwarf story, which is you see Clonk, the anvil squig, headbutt a Stormcast till he dies. So you've got that to look forward to.
You don't have to listen to episode 1 because nothing really happens in Dawnbringers.
Not really. No.
But then how would you know about that Pontifex we just referred to? I mean, I guess we just talked about it and she died. Spoilers. Spoiler tag.
All right. So they're on the run from the Grots. Talk me through the scene. What do we see?
It's very sad because at the end of book 2, not the end of the action part of book 2, the Marshal of the Crusades sacrificed himself, blowing up this fort, trying to take out as many trogs as he could to buy the Crusade time. And he bought them 15 minutes, it seems like. The Grots are on the tails. It says they're killing cast-like formations before they can even turn around to shoot back. And it feels like this might be the end of us. And then they hear terrible news. There's giant dragon-like creatures in front of them. But the Dwarden with them get happy because they realize that these are the magma droths of the Fire Slayers.
We were talking about Fire Slayers before. Fiore comes to the rescue.
Yeah.
I knew he'd come back.
Well,
Fury? I mean, I don't know who that Fury guy is, but
what are you talking about? Our guy, our Fire Slayer. Surely the grounding Fire Slayer element that we had from book 1, who we were borderline certain would return later. He's rallied his bros. They're riding Magma Dross, and they come to save the day.
No, they're saving them. They're saving them.
Yeah.
No, it's in your back pocket.
He's coming back later.
Yeah. He's gonna.
I legitimately think that the characters in this book think that he doesn't exist because they're like, that whole hold got taken care of, so they're all dead now. So we're gonna go avenge him. So he's being avenged, even though he's not dead yet. So hopefully that works out pretty well.
Not dead yet. Yeah, no, it's the Deus Ex Machina at the end of the book. I'm calling it. Sorry, go ahead.
It's gonna be that scene from Indiana Jones: The Last Crusade where they're all mourning him, and he just walks up behind them, like, "What are you guys talking about?"
But with a Scottish accent. No, it's. I mean, and some would argue this is a bigger deal, but it's Bael Grimnir, I guess, some dude who comes and like rides to save them. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So they say Bael Grimnir, one of the most powerful of all the Rune Fathers.
Yes,
I for one would have preferred. I would have preferred Fury, but okay, sure.
Yeah. Like, is he from something?
He runs the largest lodge, the Vasargi Lodge.
Yeah,
he's usually on a Magmadroth. So,
has he been in any stories? Like, has he done anything cool?
Probably.
The Fire Slayers haven't done much in the lore, like big lore up until this point. They're like, it's always like a mercenary band of Fire Slayers, but we've never seen the Fire Slayers as like a people do much. But he's the leader of like the poster boy faction, the Vostargi, which is why he's leading an entirely different lodge, the Lofnir.
Okay, I do remember the Fire Slayers once betrayed the good guys at Lethis.
Yes,
so that's something.
He wasn't there for that.
He wasn't there. Though. He wasn't even there for that one.
That wasn't him.
Okay. All right. Well, what does he do again?
He takes the Magmadroth and he kills a bunch of Gortide with them. Because what it is, not Gortide, Trogos, because as we mentioned, they are avenging the fallen holds. In the stories that kind of led to us being introduced in Fury in Book 1 of Harbingers, most of these holds have been falling because Troggoths, led by Trug, have been killing everyone. And so now we have all of these Fire Slayer, like almost refugees who no longer have a home, who have some, they call it grudgement, that they need to enact. And that's what they do. They ride the Magmadroths, and they get the little kindled droths, and they just torch them.
So I really enjoyed this moment in particular because it was a moment where the Fire Slayers were not completely all like mercenary. And what I'm talking about specifically is as soon as the Dawnbringer Crusade showed up, Doomseekers just start streaming past them. Don't say a word and just like, oh, I see Troggoths. They took out our vassal lodges. I'm taking them down. It was only when Bael Grimnir came in like, oh, okay, yeah, you actually owe us some money. Let's figure this out before we accompany you and protect you. But we had some of this like good old fashioned dwarven grudging going on.
Yeah.
And I thought that was super cool.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I meant when I said like we've never seen the Fire Slayer people. We've only ever seen like basically faceless mercenary bands. Like they hadn't done stuff like this too often in the books. So it's nice to see.
I'm trying to think if there's honestly not too many named characters in Fire Slayers as a whole, and even Bael Grimnir doesn't have a model. I will point out that there is one named Fire Slayer that is loosely germane to this conversation, which is the leader of the Chosen Axes, Fuel Grimnir, who is actually Bael Grimnir's like grandfather. So if you want to talk about like important Fire, I mean, it has nothing to do with the story really, but just it's an interesting tidbit in that the Underworld's warband is being led by the most powerful like leader, the grandfather of the most powerful leader of the Fire Slayers, who is this Bael Grimnir. And so that like it's a side thing where like behind the scenes they're like, well, now that the grandfather's back, like should he be in charge instead? And there might be like a bone of contention. That's just a fun little tidbit. Another thing I wanted to bring up though is this is relatively early in our episode, we had a listener question about this very topic that I want to make sure we bring up before I forget. Patron of the show, Drake, they had asked, does any narrative thread connect Lofnir Drothkeepers with our old pal Fury? If our jokes weren't clear before, no, not at all. Other than maybe he was from one of those lodges that were the vassal lodges to
He wasn't. He wasn't, because his lodge fell to the Skaven, not the others.
Yeah.
Oh, someone different.
Even
Nice try, Aaron.
I'm trying. I'm trying to get.
come on.
Nothing from book one matters.
Yeah.
Hey, the flesh eater courts matter
Yeah. Yeah.
theoretically.
I guess they keep referencing Nurgle's reigns. I suppose that has some. I mean, maybe matters at some point too. So Drake, no. The answer is no. Good question though.
I do want to point out a quick thing here, though. So we have Magmadroths, right, which are super cool, but then we also have these other things, right? What are they called again, Will? The
Kindle Droth.
The Kindle Droth.
Because they're not full magma or fire. There's tiny little kindlings.
Because we just had a model release, or we are getting a model release. I don't even know if it happened yet or if it's happening next week, where we have a new Fireslayer Warcry warband with Kindle Droths. Right? So I thought it was super cool that we've started wrapping in some of these other releases into what's going on. And this is a trend that's going to continue as we move forward in the narrative.
That's true. That is true.
Yeah.
Anything about Fireslayers saving the day?
Yeah, I'm just going to say I gave it some guff of like Bail Grimnir is Vostarg and he's working with Lofnir. And that's not like a discrepancy. If you pull up the map, they're like right next to each other. So it makes sense that he's there. It's funny because they really want to hammer in the new, like Paul said, the new kit that is Lofnir specific. But then they also need to get the Vostarg hero, and they're trying to weave those together.
I wonder why they cared enough to have Bail Grimnir in this story, in that like he could have been anybody. It didn't need to be him. I wonder why.
So this is something I'm going to talk about in the Kyran side a lot more of, which is because they're actually looking at the maps finally and looking at like, oh, wait, don't we have these factions within like a few miles of each other? Wouldn't it be weird if we didn't have them like show up?
Okay, good point. Sure.
So I think that's what it is, because if you like pull up the map where they're going, they go right by the Vostarg Lodge, and it's like, if we know we have like Fiore, who's like the last of his hold, it'd be weird if Bail Grimnir didn't walk out of the doors to help someone.
And admittedly, if it was like a different faction with another name that we saw a lot, I would be like, oh, okay, I get it. They want to have the big names show up, and it's not Bail Grimnir's fault that like he hasn't been like front and center, right? It's because we're not as well read as maybe as we need to be, and maybe he is much more important than we're giving him credit for.
Or we haven't looked at Hammerhall actually a lot since first edition, I think is also part of it.
Also true. All right, cool. Other Fireslayer thoughts? Neat. Fireslayer saved the day. Dawnbringers.
Yeah.
Nope, Aaron, don't make the same joke. I was going to. They get to their destination and they found a city. Funny. No. So they carry on, but they know, the Dawnbringers know that up ahead dangers still lurk, in because they have to, I guess, skirt the coastline of the Heartblood Sea, and that does not sound like a pleasant place. Why are they so afraid of the Heartblood Sea? What do you guys think?
Well, this is Gore-Tide territory.
That is for sure. But what are the chances they'll come across any? Gore-Tide? They're all sacking Hammerhall Aksha. I mean, there's probably no foreign folks to be found out here anymore.
There's no one left.
Yeah, they all went home, or the opposite of home. They went out.
Maybe it would. Maybe it's going to be okay. But they get to the sea, and the sea's just blood. It's a bad sign.
It's got a name of Heartblood Sea. What did you think, Payment? What did you think was going to be in there?
Well, before I think it was just like a warm kind of like, we're a fiery people. We got like, a nice warm sea. We call it. It's probably so warm it could come from a heart, but no, it's just gross blood now.
Gross. So the Dawnbringers march on. They've got their Fireslayer escort, which is nice that they stuck around for a little bit. That's cool. I think they tried to pay them, right? Or didn't like Zenestra throw some money at them? Yeah,
she did. Okay. Yeah,
neat, smart, good call. If you don't want them to stab you in the back,
a point for the Pontifex. Things weren't looking good, and then the fire shares show up, and she was like, just as Sigmar wills.
My favorite part of that is the people who aren't cultists are like, do you think she only likes them because they don't use wheels? And then they get told to shut up.
The other thing is, I'm like, I appreciate the forethought of like, we're going to go on crusade to the middle of nowhere to find a new city. Oh, we better bring a whole chest of money just in case. Right? Like, oh, hey, weird. We brought a whole chest of money and it's going to figure in prominently into what's going on.
Don't put wheels on that chest. You carry that nonsense. I don't care how heavy it is. All right, so they head to the coast of the Heartblood Sea, and they're moving through the arid, rocky landscape, and without fail. I mean, stop me if I'm going too quick, but they stumble across some Bloodbound. I think some of their scouts are found out, and Bloodbound, they jump out of hiding from these high canyon walls or something, and start wailing on them. Oh no, they've stumbled right into a Bloodbound trap. Who could have seen this coming?
All right, you ready for my dollar?
Yes.
It's a cool summer. Because Korg is cool, leads the Gore Tide.
Yeah.
And
Instead of going
here's the
Taylor
Gore.
Swift, you dug deeper.
But he's not here.
No. He doesn't lead this Gore Tide. He just leads them in general.
Because he was literally in Gur like 2 seconds ago. And yes, I understand he disappeared, but like he was just there. But as we've proven, people can be wherever the story needs them to be. Oh no, things look dire as they always do. Bloodbound, jumping all over the place. The Dawners are trying to hold them back as best they can, but even with the support of the Fire Slayers, things are not looking good. Truly, they cannot be saved by help coming out of nowhere twice in a row. That would be insane. Who is that lucky?
It would take a miracle.
A big miracle. And is this where Zenestra starts to pray?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
That's right. Yeah.
Sometimes when you worship Sigmar, praying to him, he will give you some aid.
It's the power of prayer. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. It's the positive thinking, if nothing else. Lightning bolts. Right.
Yeah.
Boom.
I just wanted to be Paul to the lightning bolts. Who should appear? Honestly, I never expected this in a million years, despite the fact that they gave me the models. Who shows up?
We get Sigmar's assassin herself, Knave Black Talon, and the rest of the Black Talons coming in and cutting things, and you go, oh, that's awesome. Neve is the hero that's going to save us. Boom. Vandus Hammerhand shows up.
Just kidding. Second billing. What are you guys even doing here? Yeah.
You're like, I heard Cool was here. I heard there's Cool. I heard Corgus, something. I'm here.
Yeah, somebody made a pun.
Yeah.
Would you say that it's Cool and his gang?
That's
for Paul.
Yeah. No, that's 100%. I approve 100%.
If Davey were here, I think he would refer to it as this is a hat on a hat situation, which is the duo of.
If Davey were here, you would hear his groan for over the din of battle. I'd be like, he'd be right. But it's okay.
I think he'd like my Cool in the gang. I think he'd appreciate it. Anyways, yes. Who should show up? But Knave Black Talon, her Black Talons, who we'll talk about, and Vandus Hammerhand with a bunch of Hammerhands as well.
I love this moment because last book we were joking well, this is a named character with a model, so they're going to win the fight. Here we have a moment where a brand new box, a brand new unit shows up, but they get second billing to literally the first model in Age of Sigmar.
Literally oldest model in Age of Sigmar, yeah.
Which still, despite Thunderstrike armor, I think Vandus still holds up like that.
Oh, yeah.
Dracoth pose, I mean, even with it's kind of got a derpy leg, but still, I really, really dig it.
I had very mixed feelings about original Age of Sigmar lore, but I'm it's been long enough. I'm nostalgic for Vandus. I'm let's just scrap it up in the middle of nowhere, fighting for nothing. Once again, here we go.
Thanks for mocking it for sure. But so between the Black Talons, Vandus, and his Hammerhands, they make quick work of so they defeat an initial Bloodbound group, right? Okay, so it's kind of like their scouts and
they defeat the first wave of the Gore Tide.
Sure. And it grants okay, I didn't even get it, but I get it now. It grants the Dawnbringers a little bit of a reprieve so that we can have a little bit of a scene in a moment. Did anything much else happen in the fight, or this little skirmish in the beginning before we carry on? I'm trying to think if we missed anything. It was really just the reveal that they just showed up was kind of the biggest thing, if you ask me.
Mm-hmm. No, that's kind of it, because they kind of shift the camera away from the Crusade for a bit, because you think these Stormcast show up, they're going to escort the Crusade, but Vandus is like, no, I'm not here for that. I didn't come here to save you. I came here to kill Khorne. Neve will save you. She'll guard you. She'll protect the Crusade. You'll see more of her later. I'm going to go fight more corn guys. I'll catch y'all later.
I like to pretend like he didn't even know they were there. Like it didn't even occur to him that like there was Dawnbringers to be saved. I don't think that's explicitly said in the text, but that's my own headcanon a little bit.
He probably didn't even know that they changed colors to red. So he probably saw that first soldier and like raised his hammer up like, ooh.
He's like, yeah. He's like, do the sign of the comment. Okay, you're cool. Nice. Yeah. And so reprieve granted. Vandus, as we said, she's like, I'm not going to escort you guys. I got Bloodbound to kill. And he sort of wanders off. But in wandering off, he just sort of I don't know, does he stumble across his old friend? Like where?
I am very specifically reminded of an event that happened in a previous Age of Sigmar lore book, which is where there's a bunch of Stormcast who are fighting and they're like at a realm gate and they're like, dude, like this is like way too much. We're totally going to die. And like, this is terrible. And then a bunch of Seraphon show up and they're like, dude, the Seraphon are here. We're totally going to win now. And then they just run right past them and go through the realm gate and disappear. And it's like, all right, so Vandus pulled a Seraphon and was like, hey, look at those guys. I'm bye. Okay, we're done now.
Yeah, and then to answer your question, Aaron, we get like a little like actual like story snippet like in the narrative. And it's Vandus is there just fighting even more Gore-Tide. And then he sees shadows coming in over the sky, and he recognizes, oh, isn't that my good friend Ionis riding a big Draconith?
And he looks down at Kalanax, and he's like, oof. I mean, it's aged a little bit. Grow some wings or something, buddy? Or what's up?
Like, I mean, you were cool in first edition. We're in third edition now. Like, you got to be cooler now. Like you need to add a couple more syllables. Like Dracoth is not a thing anymore. Like we really need some Draconith or something, right? Like come on.
Mm-hmm.
It's dragon inflation is what it is.
Yeah, we're not about fake horses. We're back to real horses.
Yeah.
Which was the biggest scoop in story phase history. I have to say.
Yeah, a big one.
I didn't know you listened. I'm glad that you did. I appreciate it. That was fun.
There's a scale creep joke in there, but
guys, we're on fire tonight.
I was just gonna wrap up this part. So yeah, Ionis Cryptborn shows up, although like kind of towards the end of the battle, he's looking for Vandus. They just chat a little bit. Ionis is concerned about his friend because he's been reforged a bunch of times. Yeah. He was killed by Archon once.
Archon. And he lightninged up with his claws.
Yeah, that was a rough one. Ionis is asking if he still sees the Lightning Man, which is creepy for sure. And Vandus is like, "Who told you about that?" And he's like, "You did." And like,
favorite.
Yikes. And Ionis also mentions that he's on a new quest from Sigmar. We don't know what that quest is. That's a new kind of other hook that we can pull at later. He used to be searching for a cure for the flaw in the reforging, but that hasn't panned out. Just one more kind of cutaway point is that there's a rumor going around about Vandus is that when he's in between battles, they have to jail him beneath the Perspicarium, which is the Storm Keep in Hammerhall. Actually, I think it's the main Storm Keep for the Hammers of Sigmar. And he just kind of rants and raves under the Storm Keep, chanting prophecies.
Yeah.
So it seems like all is not well with old Vandus.
He's not doing great.
Yeah.
I appreciated this specifically because they incorporated some of I feel like some Black Library lore and some Battle Tome lore together to make like a super fun no, you told me this is what's going on. The Lightning Man, like everything all of a sudden is out in the open. And I thought that was super well done. So,
well, and then the conversation doesn't end well, right? Like they don't end on great terms. Like Ionis is like, "Hey man, you're not all there." Like, and he's like, "You got to come back to us." And Vandus is like, "Nah, I got one job, and it's to kill Cool." And like, Cool ain't here. So, any other things about this conversation? I think this is a really important conversation. I surprisingly dig like interpersonal connections between Stormcast. These like very stoic, sometimes impenetrable characters to see sort of like real, brotherhood, camaraderie, and then like see the button heads a little bit. And furthermore, I think maybe my opinion of this little cutout was informed by the Warcom story that came just a few days ago, where it talks about it's Ionis with his new dragon friend, and we'll talk about sort of that relationship at one point. But how Ionis is, they're sitting by a campfire. He and his partner probably are bonding, talking about, sort of ruminating on Vandas's plight and how important he is to Ionis Scriptborn. And so I really like seeing that bond. And I think this is a great direction that they're taking.
I agree. Well, because there's a line in that story that's like the Cathorak. It's like, you know what? No, going and taking, putting a quest on hold to look after someone you love, that's what makes you Stormcast. And I thought reading that, wow, that's beautiful. Also, literally the first time this has ever come up. And this book is the second time. So we're starting to see that happen more, which I'm like, good. I want to see more of this. This is fantastic.
I remember reading that line, and although it's very sentiment and heartfelt, I probably said out loud, no, it's not. That has nothing to do with that.
I thought it was Stormcast about lightning fights.
I'm sorry, man, but you're wrong. That's not true. I love where it's coming from. Again, it's heartwarming, but also utterly untrue. And also, I thought it was funny coming from one of these Draconists that also thus far have seemed fairly aloof and cold. But I guess that maybe isn't universally true. So to see even multiple characters and even the dragons, I think is it.
The other thing I love is that we have Neve is here, but everybody's like, oh, whatever. It's her. No, it's Ionis and Gardas. They're just completely ignore Neve, and they're like, we're having a moment. I don't know if you know this, but we're having a moment. So we're gonna have this moment. And they're like, oh right, Neve is here. Let's talk about Neve now and what's going on with her, because she actually stayed at the column while these guys had this moment and moved on and moved forward.
Mm-hmm.
It is kind of a clunky setup. I like when a bunch of named characters show up in one place. So I suppose broadly, I think it's neat. But they do seem like two parallel inclusions.
If it isn't obvious already, this is the named characters make a cameo book.
It's true.
So let's follow our cameo characters, Vandus and Ionis, as they go track the Gortide.
I feel like you're just throwing more fuel on the fire here, Hayden.
But also he's not entirely this section is great. Probably a section I enjoy a lot out of this book. It's also not about the Crusade that the series is about.
I don't want to call it, padding has such a bad connotation. It's a break. It's important probably for larger things, right?
Yes.
How sometimes, and maybe this is a trope in fiction where the mundane story serves as your entry point, and then it then is your window into a much larger impactful thing. I don't want to say that the Dawnbringers thing isn't going to be impactful, but where Vandus goes and presumably where Cool goes, that is probably going to have some big ramifications. And so they had to kick it off somewhere, and so they're going to kick it off.
We're table setting in the middle of one story for a different story that's going to happen.
Oh boy, we do a lot of that. Yeah.
We were talking about offline a little bit, which is that we've been waiting for the story to happen, and now all the story is happening. Right? Since the beginning of 3rd edition, we were like, okay, Heir of the Beast, it's a thing. Things are happening. And now it's everything is happening right now.
Yeah, there's, I think, a pacing critique in here somewhere. But let's just jump into it. Let's enjoy where we are.
Yeah, so we basically, actually, before we even get to that, we have some listener questions.
Bunch of listener questions, which will inform where this goes, yeah.
Yeah. So first one is from patron Drake. Has Vandus Hammerhand status changed since Hammers of Sigmar first forged? For those of you who have read that book.
Show of hands, who has read Hammers of Sigmar first forged? Hey,
Paul, take it away.
Question for you.
No. The simple answer is no. He's still going a little crazy. Stuff is still happening. He's still seeing the Lightning Man. He is perhaps a little bit more coherent than he was presented in First Forged. He's having some actual good, real conversations. Whereas I think in First Forged, he was presented a little bit more of this crazy guy that we unleash upon the enemy. He still is very much single-minded, but I don't think that he is unintelligible or quite as obsessive, because he's having an actual real conversation at this point.
And then another question from Minervis. When did we actually last see Vandus doing anything of note? Did he do anything in that book?
Yeah, I mean, there was a whole thing going on where they're celebrating the anniversary. And I mean, like, yes. The short answer is yes. Where all this ties in, and it is cool because they're talking about the Lightning Man. They're talking about, that's where it all comes from.
Okay.
So yes, super cool. I really like Frisk Forged. I think there's a little bit of a mixed opinion in the Discord, but there's always a mixed opinion. So
yeah,
it is fun, and it does something else that I really like that this book does well. So I'm going to mention that here. It calls back to what happened before, and what I mean by that is they're going to where the Stormcast first struck down, and we're going to see a little bit of a callback to something in the Realm Gate Wars later on in this book as well. So
yeah. The reason I ask is because other than that book, I can't think of anything much Vandus has done. It's kind of been like a running gag of like, where's Vandus this time? Because he was there for the Realm Gate Wars, and then he got injured, and then we've just seen him like in the background. Will be a sentence or two like Vandus might be going crazy, and like that's kind of it for a little while. So that's why I'm excited that he's back.
Will just threw his hands up in the air. That's how he was.
Yeah. I went, yay.
In Vandus's defense, he was cut by one of the most powerful weapons in the mortal realms.
Oh, yeah.
And he is dealing with the ramifications of it, which I think is actually super awesome. Mm-hmm. That we see a named character that everybody's going to recognize dealing with it. So, he's going crazy. No, he's being slowly and insidiously infected by this weapon, this demon sword, by a demigod. Like, that's what should happen. Instead of, I got killed, I'm going to be reforged, right? Oopies. No, actually, this is a big deal. It's the same thing that happened with Catacross, where he was like, I'm going to go fight Archaon. All right, I fought Archaon. Wait, I'm still, like, hurting. Like, I have a new body. I've been repossessed, but like there's a consequence. Bad things are happening. I love that. Please, more of that. So yes, awesome.
Vandus is much more interesting than he was in Sigmar.
Yes.
Could you name a character trait that he had before that? I don't think
he was first.
He had the keyword mounted.
Yeah. Sure. Right. Then another question comes from our friend SageMutt. And they say, and then they'll ask, in Hallowed Knight's Black Pyramid, it was revealed that Gardas is one of the few Stormcast to genuinely respect Vandus in his capacity as a commander and general, uncolored by judgment for Vandus being transfigured, or Stormcast profoundly changed by reforging. Basically, Gardas is like, no, Vandus is still cool. Don't listen to what everyone tells you. He's good at his job. The question is, does this book reveal what Vandus in turn thinks of the Steel Soul? I don't think he thinks much of him at all.
I don't know. He remembers his name.
That's because Steel Soul pieced out, like literally, like went into pieces and he went out before Vandus showed up on the scene.
I tried not to include too many listener questions that does this book talk about X, Y, or Z? And the answer just flat out no. Like I tried not to add too many of those questions. So sorry, listener, if one of your questions was, does this book talk about X, Y, or Z? If we don't bring it up here, then the answer is no to your question. However, I included this one, despite the fact it's just an answer is no, because I'd be curious to think or to talk about, and I guess we addressed it a little bit. Do we get any sense of Vandus's opinion of Ionis Cryptborn at all? So Gardas is one thing, but Cryptborn I think is maybe a little bit more interesting. He's closer to having an opinion about Cryptborn, though I don't know that he has a out and out opinion on him.
His opinion, I don't want to get too much into the psychoanalysis of Vandus Hammerhand, but like at first he's like, oh, that's my friend Ionis Cryptborn, and then Ionis is like, hey man, are you okay, like for real? And Vandus just gets super defensive, and I feel like there's a little bit of like maybe some self-doubt in there, which makes Vandus a cooler character. So I think there's like this weird strained friendship respect that Vandus has for Ionis, but he doesn't want his problems to be the forefront of it.
Exactly right. I'd agree with that. Any other thoughts, team?
I would say that he's probably one of the realest characters that we've ever had, because to me, this really reads of, you've got a friend, he's dealing with some problems, and you're like, hey man, you've got some problems. The friend's like, no, I don't. And you're like, okay, great, but I'm still your friend, and I'm still here, and like, I'm here if you want to have a conversation. And he's like, I don't want to have a conversation. Like, great, still your friend. I'm going to go do what I need to do. If you ever feel like having a talk, you know where I am, right? Like, that's legitimately the feeling I got about this conversation, which I thought was super cool.
And it's wild to think that, like, how do I put this? This is such an interesting development. It's an incredibly interesting development. And to think that a month ago, I had no idea that this was coming. Like, I never thought I was going to see Ionis Cryptborn again. And I just thought, man, it should be crazy in perpetuity. But like, just on a dime, or like just instantly, they're like, here's this very compelling interpersonal connection, and I am hooked, and I want to see it come to its fruition. This is a great development. I hadn't said it before.
And the thing that I really liked about it is I felt like it was very clearly communicated that Ionis knew that this conversation was going to happen in exactly this specific way of things, and was just like, yeah, but I still need to have this conversation. Right. And also that Ionis is really dealing with his own crap right now. Like, there is like, hey, I've got a mission from Sigmar, but like, you're my friend, and I'm going to go find you because you're my friend. And I have this conversation that I know exactly how it's going to go, to remind you that, hey, I'm still your friend and I'm still here. So it was immensely well written and super cool.
Sure. And then in the background, the Fray, How to Save a Life, was playing. Much also asked, is Vandus still imprisoned on his off time by his evil chamber? And I think the answer is yes, right? Like, he's often stored under the Perspicarium. It just about happens that they let him out right now. Just real quick as a blur, because in case the listeners have forgotten since last episode, yes, we do ask listener questions on the show. Yes, you can get your question on the show too. Let me tell you a secret. I don't tell this to anybody, but it's because I like you. Hang out in the Discord all the time, in the Stories and Lore channel, in fact. And one day, unannounced, I'll say, hey, do you got any questions for this episode? You're going to be like, heck yeah, I do, Aaron. I'm going to send it to you. Type it all up. I copy and paste it into a Word document, and then I copy and paste it into the show notes. Yes, that's 2 steps. That's way too many steps for what I'm doing. And then we'll ask your question on the show, like we've done with Drake, Minervus, and Sage Mud. Carrying on, I know Paven's really excited to keep moving on. Hey, I think we asked Will to take us to the next step.
The next step is the Gortide Breaks, which is basically a sort of a reenactment of the first battles of the Realmgate Wars. We actually get to learn or remember some of the names of the Khorne heroes in that box.
I think they were listed before. I'm pretty sure they were named previously.
I think they were named, but it's been 7-8 years since then, so...
That's true. It's been so long.
It's been a while, so I completely forgot them. But Vandus and Ionis are going up against all of Kul's lieutenants, hoping to draw out Korgus himself. And
shouldn't even be here. He was in Gur 2 seconds ago.
Yeah.
But
well, that's the thing. Yeah. Does Korgus Kul show up? No. He doesn't show up in this fight.
Shows up later, okay?
He doesn't show up in this fight.
Waste our time.
Yeah, Vandus' plan to lure him out by killing these people didn't happen. He just kills these people. They die.
What a waste. Yeah.
You just see Ionis and Cathorak just like let loose their new war scroll and kill a bunch of things. And then they kind of split and go their separate ways. Ionis is like, hey, remember, I'm on this quest from Sigmar. I am actually going to take some of your troops. You no longer outrank me, so they're mine. Sign of the comet, and he leaves.
Deuces. Yeah. I want to talk about I like the way this was structured a little bit. Maybe my brain is a little too organized, and this isn't how battles ought to go. But I love when people pair off or line up against each other. And so Vandus kills Vec the Flayer, who is the Bloodstoker, who I have in my Khorne army. It's funny because I just recently pulled all my Khorne dudes out, and so these are the guys that they're talking about. Ionis kills Threx Skullbrand, who's a Bloodsecrator, and the Bloodsecrator is the one who then summoned a Bloodthirster, which Cathorak, however he said, had to mano a mano or Drago.
A demo.
Drago a mano.
Had to take him out. I think he breathes on him and he turns him to ash, which presumably is fire, I guess. And then Kalanax, not to be left out. I think they don't explicitly say defeats a Korgorath, but presumably he chomps on a Korgorath and beats him. So those 4 Khorne things are were the big, besides Korgus Cole himself, were some of the big things in the starter set, which I still have all of. I don't think you can get those anymore, right? You Go digging.
They are. I don't know if you can get them anymore, but they were being sold as like the start collecting box for core.
For a while. Yeah. I mean, but like Korgraths are in the army. Like for someone who wanted a Korgrath, I don't know how you'd get that.
They're only in the start. I think that's why they keep that box around still. Is because it's the only way to get that model because it's stuck on that sprue.
Yeah. It was like it was kind of a silly battle because it was like a bunch of utility buff pieces versus like tier 1 special characters, and you're like, oh, all right, let's see how this goes. I'm like, oh, they wreck them. Oh, like even the Bloodthirster like does not put up a fight. Like he just breathes fire on him. Aren't Bloodthirsters from hell? Like you expect the fire not to, but just like one shots them.
Yeah, like Shyish
Soul Fire.
Yeah, there you go. So it's still fun little thing. I can picture the movie of that fight. Yeah, I
don't know how you guys felt, but there didn't feel like there was a lot of dramatic tension in this one.
No, I think the tension was in whether or not it was going to work, and if it was going to lure out Korgus Cole. You knew who was going to win, but you didn't know how it was going to like play out.
Well, and I also think it was going to serve. Very abbreviatedly. That's not a word. But it was. I think. This is a big, larger conversation later, but I think this is maybe a turning of a page or like a threshold from like the old to the new. And like, this was a way for them to show like, we're not done with Cool. Cool's going to come back. Right. And so like, he's going to shed his old stuff and like be presumably this new thing. Right. I think he's probably going to be powered up quite a bit. And so like, it's showing off, like, we're going to clear out the chaff to get like to get to like the new Korgus Cole. And so yes, they did it very easily, but they needed to do it in a page, and so they did.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't remember who these people were, and then like they gave them names just to like get, like, remember these guys? They're still around. They've been around for 100 years. Somehow they didn't film these two jabronis
and Aqua Gyranis.
Just hanging out, and then we're like, okay, like, oh, they're gonna try to beat Vandus, and this other dude on a dragon. I'm like, okay. All right. Well.
This is very much fan service for a very specific subset of fan, and I fall into that group. So
yeah, like I'm down here. Like it's for me. I was like, okay, great. Like we finally killed these characters. Like I've been waiting 6 years for some forward progress, and we're down from 8 to 6. This is forward progress.
Yeah, Thrax. He's been asking for it for a long time.
Thrax in my side. Minerva's asked a question, and Paul, you were alluding to this previously, but what are the parallels and themes reflected between the initial Vandus versus Cool battle and now?
I am going to say it is a flip the script, because in the original battle, Cool was super obsessed about like, I'm going to become a demon prince. And I need Vandus's head because he's the one that's going to sit at the top of my pyramid, and then I'm going to become a demon prince, and everything will be great. And Vandus was just like, who's this crazy guy who's like trying to take over all these things? I'm like, I just got an axe, and I want to kill him. And like, that's all we're going to do. And in this book, it's the opposite, because like Vandus is like, I just need to kill Cool. Like everything doesn't matter besides Cool might be here. I heard that he might be here. And I have an axe, and it's got his name on it, so I'm going to go after it. And then there's a little bit of a spoiler, but we get a postscript where Cool is like looking at what happened and was like, yeah, those stupid underlings of mine who went out to go confront him because they're like, oh, look, it's Vandus. We're gonna kill Vandus because that's a cool thing. No, that's not what I'm doing. I am going to become a demon prince, and I'm going to plan it out, and I'm not going to be lured out by this stupid Vandus showing up, because I did that last time and that was wrong. So now I'm going to like actually plan what's going on. So they really did completely do the opposite motivations.
I hadn't put 2 and 2 together, but that's a good observation. Yeah. One was obsessed before, now the other one is. That's cool.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think one's become the tactician and one's become the kind of the murder barbarian. Because I think Vandus beats Cool in the first book, the first Realm Gate Wars book, by like destroying his pyramid. Mm-hmm. Like he doesn't actually defeat him in combat. He knows like, oh, I have to stop the ritual in order to defeat this guy, and he destroys his pyramid. I forget, he hits him with lightning or something. I don't think he dies.
R.I.P. Yaktos Goldenmane.
Oh, Yaktos.
Oh man, I still missed him.
We actually took
like.
God, think of like all the important information I don't have in my brain because I remember Yaktos.
But he was awesome. Like he was like singing cool stuff. Like he was great.
If he was awesome, he would have kept his head. But anyways, how did he keep his head? I thought they shot into lightning. Anyways, this is an old.
I think the axe, the corn axe.
Yeah.
Yep.
Reality.
Yeah.
The reality
He was
splitting.
dead for good. Yeah,
Also, just as an aside, you think Vandus would be after Archeon? Now, I mean, admittedly, he probably knows he can't take Archeon, but like, he's the one who effed you up, man. Like, you would think. Oh, well.
Yeah.
Still.
But he doesn't remember that, which I thought was a cool moment. That, and this is something that Vandus is now that is super cool to me, is that he forgets the important things but remembers the unimportant. And that was something that was communicated really well in this passage, is that kept talking about how he remembered the people from his village that were killed. He still has that initial like memory from the first life that all those Stormcast had, from the first Realm Gate Wars, from the first books of like, Sigmar's going to go send me to the place where I'm from, because turns out I had this really weird connection with the bad guy from the book that I'm going to realize 175 pages in, and then I'm going to kill him at page 197, and then the book is going to end. And Vandus is still stuck in that because he remembers every life that was lost, but he can't remember what happened after. So as opposed to everything else that we get, which is where Ionis is coming in, where Ionis is like, you don't even remember who you are. Like, you don't remember being human. I'm going to take you because you need to remember what it's like to be a Stormcast. I assume. I don't know. That hasn't been filled out. And so we've literally got this flip the script of, this is what a Stormcast is. Oh, not here. Not now. Oh, this is, the Stormcast are following Sigmar. Well, yes, but also Ionis is like doing his own thing because Sigmar's like, no, I trust you now. You're doing your own thing. And the same thing with Neve. And Vandus is the one who's theoretically disobeying Sigmar because Ionis is like, hey, BT dubs, this is not what I want you to do. But he's also living his best life, as in he is living the life that he lived in order to become a Stormcast over and over and over again.
Very cool. I think Will, you'd mentioned Ionis then leaves with some of Vandus' Stormcasts. Because these are mine now. These are my toys. See ya.
Gimme.
Yep. And so he vamooses.
Yeah, and he does. Where was it? Maybe it's the next page. But he does say, like, and maybe I'm going to come back for you eventually. And they just kind of put a pin in that. And I guess we'll need to figure out what that means later.
And I think that last line is a bit more foreboding, because what they mention, I don't think here, but they definitely mention later, is who Ionis takes is the Stormcast who've been reforged too many times. Ionis, when it mentions more than once, when he shows up to a battle, he'll show up to a battle randomly, help win, and he'll leave with some Stormcast, and it'll be the Stormcast that have been reforged to him. So when he returns for Vandus, it's going to be like Vandus is done.
Yeah.
And we don't know what Ionis is going to do with all the Stormcasts, like a new special kind of chamber of two reforged lightning guys.
I'm thinking spa day. I'm thinking he's taking him to a spa.
There's a big farm he has upstate. There's a lot of room for them to run around in.
It's a rainbow brick.
Oh, way better. All right. I think that wraps up our Stormcast scenes. You guys got any more Stormcast thoughts? All right, Cool. Right on. So, Bloodbound driven off, I guess, being handled by the Hammers of Sigmar, which leaves the Dawnbringer Crusade kind of to their own devices a little bit as they proceed to continue past the Heartblood Sea. But their troubles are not over, because they're never over. This is a dream world of magic. What is it, a mist? Is it like a blood mist or some sort of mist comes?
A regular mist. I imagine it's a kind of a hot mist, given where we are.
My favorite type.
Like a sauna.
So gross. Their wilder cores they're losing their scouts, or the scouts come back what's the word? I guess confused, maybe just they're lost in this mist. Oh no, what is this? Where's this mist coming from? What is this? And it's around then that oh no, cries go out. They're under attack from unseen assailants from the mist. Who could it possibly be? Another group that I did not predict. However, I guess in these campaign books, you should always just be ready for the unexpected, because they got to get as many armies in as they can. Oh no, it's the Ideneth, the Deacon, the how do you say it? Fuethan. I'm gonna have you all. That'll be you got you all your guys' pronunciations.
I mean, when we yelled it out, I think we all yelled out something a little differently.
Yeah, I know.
Slightly
on
different.
purpose.
Yeah.
It's just to mess with Aaron.
It was like a harmony, but in pronunciation of words. And so it's the Ashian ones, the hot-blooded ones, the ones who are particularly angry and aggressive, and they're dicing up fools left and right. Oh no, whatever shall we do? Not to jump too far ahead, but like, spoiler alert, for the first time, like, this group is not saved by like surprise help. Like they do it themselves. Now admittedly their forces have been bolstered. They've got fire slayers, they've got the black talons, like they've already got help, but for the first time they don't need like another party to come in and say them. I was waiting for whoever's going to drop in, and no one does. They just kind of handle it themselves.
Well, yeah, and what's great is they use a trick, because this is just a rematch of the Fury of the Deep battle box.
Explain.
Because the Fuethan attacked the Fire Slayer hold of Riftmar as part of that box story, and they killed all the Fire Slayers and took their souls. But Baal Grimnir heard this cool trick they used, where they just burned the mist away. So, like, the Ideneth ambush, and they didn't even like hesitate. They just started throwing fire into the mist and just started killing the Ideneth back, like, almost instantly. It's the first time where like not only that they weren't saved by like a random person coming over the hill, but they knew what they were dealing with and just dealt with it.
Does the Baal Grimnir knowing what to do, was that in the text, or are we just assuming?
It says, deploying the tactics of the ill-fated hold, Baal Grimnir.
Oh, nice. That's cool. It didn't even occur to me.
Well, and the second thing that I loved about this moment is that there were Stormcasts here, and they didn't help. Right? Wow. They were trying to help, right? But they were like, red Stormcast button, Stormcast will save us. Nope. They're like, actually the Stormcast are kind of like trying to figure out what's going on too, because they're trying to rescue all these people. So I guess we have to do it ourselves.
Didn't they take down one of the turtles? Did I dream?
Yeah, they did.
They did once battle started, yeah.
Once they destroyed part of the mist, then they could counterattack, and Neve was part of that counterattack where she kills
which was, I forgot the funniest part, which is they see the mist coming in, they're like, we don't know what's going on. A member of the Black Talons is Lorai, who is an Ideneth, and she goes, I know what this is.
I know it's not good. It's not what you do with your friends.
These dudes suck.
Yeah. It's funny. They really picked the wrong party to mess with, right? Like they're already like someone who knows their like deal, and then like the Fire Slayers know how to counter it. This was ill-fated. Another example of like, so they are led by the Achillean king, like the leader of the Fuethan group. Unnamed.
I feel like you need to record that and just play that every time we need to use this name. Fuethan.
So like kind of like Baal Grimnir in some ways. I mean, this is now a secondary or tertiary conclave of Deepkin, but still, like, this is a person who's existed and been in previous stories before. But yet another example of bringing in some named characters to, hey, here's someone else that you should know. And they defeat the Deepkin. The king says, all right, we're going to have to duel to the death, or maybe Neve offers it. I forget who suggests it in the first place, but like to settle this, there's going to be a duel to determine who, I guess wins. I think if the Dawnbringers lose, or if whoever the Dawnbringer champion loses, then they'll have to, I guess, give up to the Deepkin, presumably offer up some souls.
One thing they mentioned is like, this is weird that the Deepkin would do this. This is kind of like an act of war between allies. And they talked to King Mulfir, and he is convinced that this is like the end of the world. And that I imagine they are just raiding to protect themselves and get as many souls as possible to protect themselves, because they're reading the signs and the signs aren't good. In particular, the seas are turning foul where they touch land. So that is foreshadowing. But yeah, they try to make peace. They can't make peace, so they settle on a duel between King Mulfir and Neve.
Well, and I think because they turn to Alorai again, like, hey, is what he's saying true? And her response is like, I mean, things are weird. I don't know if necessarily if he's right, but he's not entirely wrong. And she wouldn't defend him, but she wasn't ruling out what he was saying necessarily.
I thought it was odd that like when he thought it was the end of the world, his reaction is that, all right, I'm just going to start killing like ostensible allies. Now, admittedly, like he doesn't probably have a lot of impulse control, but being where he lives and what he does, but like I'm like, that's kind of a jump from, oh no, the world is ending. I know I'm going to kill my allies. That's how I'm going to survive this. But hey, I'm not a underwater king living in the realm of fire. Though I wish
I will say I appreciated that there was a doomsday cult that wasn't human.
It's very much doomsday culty. Yeah,
because 99% of the doomsday cults are all human, and I'm like, okay, it's fine. Like, you know, it's a trope, and this is turning it on its edge because elves live forever. But it's like, no, but the world is ending. I thought that was cool, a cool little twist.
It is neat. So they do duel. Duel. The king in Nave. The fight at one point someone's winning, and the other point another person's winning. But yeah, we're gonna yada the duel, and Black Talon comes out on top and kills that dude. Thank goodness, because that would be a quick end to the Dawnbringer Crusade. So there goes that king, a named character, has now fallen. A little bit of impact here in my campaign books. I like to see it.
Yeah,
I feel like we need to go with the do they have a model that we did in the last episode though.
No model,
right? No model. I mean, it's going to happen.
There is a hierarchy.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. So in doing so, defeating the king, they kind of, I guess, they don't win over the rest of the Deepkin, but the Deepkin then, in penance, like they're like, fine, you got to go do our dirty work. You got to go back and clean up behind us. Those horrors or terrors that are still in pursuit of this crusade, because apparently they can't shake anybody, and the Deepkin agree to do so alongside our Fire Slayer buddies. So that's a fun.
Why do the Fire Slayers leave?
Because the story needs them to leave, Pavement.
Yeah, like why now?
I know. So they actually did explain it specifically, which is that they wanted to go kill the Troggoths because they killed their vassal lodges.
Yeah,
but they could have done that at any point.
They could have, but they were paid. And
I also think
so the money ran out?
I'm going to go with the money ran out.
I think the Fire Slayers did the numbers and they went, we can't actually beat these Troggoths. Oh, elves can die too? Now we're good.
Yeah. I
feel like it was a numbers game.
Seems like they would both not want to fight alongside the elves and stick with the Dawnbringers because that's what they've been doing and being paid to do.
Did you see how easily they beat the Deepkin because they had all these people like in their crusade? That doesn't make for a very good story. Yeah. They got to slim some of these numbers, man.
Right.
All right.
These have to be scary.
I think they had that scene in Return of the King with the Dwarden and the elf standing next to each other and like, oh, I never thought I'd die side by side with an elf. And the elf just looked at him and goes, I'm going to kill you after this. And then they just charge.
I still want your soul. Like you still have a soul that I can use. So yeah, whatever. Yeah.
We're not friends.
Toss me. All right. So that is that. And I think that essentially kind of brings the end to the end of like the plot of the Ashian Crusade. Are we missing anything? Anything that we got to tack on?
No, it just says for the first time in weeks, they marched on in the promise of peace.
I love it.
So that's nice. They finally get like a break after weeks.
Sure.
I appreciated that there was a couple little things. Zenestra did some magic-y stuff still. So she's kind of continuing her character. And then we had one of the named characters from the Black Talons, Shakana, did something cool too. So I thought it was cool to point out. We didn't hear anything about, I think his name is Roxas. So poor Roxas, he didn't get anything cool, but Shakana like took down a freaking turtle. So that was super cool.
Still only counts as one.
It still only counts as one. To continue with the Lord of the Rings references.
Nerds of a certain generation.
So that is the end of Action Crusade. There is a little blurb at the end, just sort of like wrapping up, like tying a bow on some things. I wonder why they did this in this book. I'd be curious to know like what the decision was behind why they needed to wrap this up like this way.
They did it in the other books to just like a 1-page wrap up. It's just more things. There's been different branching stories since then, so it just seems more important.
Gotcha. So they talk about, all right, so Trucebreak is fallen. Yes, we know. We talked about the Bloodbound of the Heartblood Sea. These are hurdles, I guess you could call them, that the Action Crusade have had to overcome. However, then they talk about things that are still like ahead of them, right? Some things that we know, but some things we don't know. In that they talk about the gates below leaking death magic. I don't know what that is.
So it's actually in the core rulebook. It's just a realm gate to Shaiish.
Well,
there's nothing. Yeah, it's not anything crazy, but it's like they're telling us it's there. So I wonder if that plays into the story later.
And not crazy enough for you, Will? I bet it is.
Right.
Wow.
It's just a portal to the underworld. Just don't worry about it. Like,
BD.
ho hum.
Then they talk about there's the reports of cannibalism in Hammerhall. I wonder what that's all about.
Well, actually, that specifically is about, there was an entry in the last book. If you look at page 43 at the bottom, it talks about the case of Olmund Merrilist. Then, if you read White Dwarf 493, you get a 3-page story about the case of Olmund Merrilist. So that's specifically what that is about.
Is he in Hammerhall Akshi or Hammerhall Gyra?
He is in Hammerhall Akshi, and it is a Hanover and Callus and Toll story. Which I thought, again, I love when they tie in all the different pieces of media and all the different publications together. So I thought that was super awesome and super amazing.
Multi-medium media.
But also, it's going forward in the book, but tying in this moment here. So the gates below leaking death magic, we actually have a like half-page thing at the very end of the book. And it talks about how we have Cool standing and watching what happened with Vandus, and then we have a bunch of bats flying across the moon. So we've gotten 2 references to deaths and specifically vampires. So I'm wondering, perhaps that might be something we see going forward in the Action Crusade.
We have a question about this later.
I know we have a question about this, but
we're moving right along. And then another question.
Moving on.
Yeah, another question from a listener of the show, patron of the show, Mealhern, who goes to bat with us or for us on Reddit all the time. And I appreciate that, Mealhern. And I appreciate your patronage. You're a cool person. Will we hear from Corgus Cool and Scylla Angerfim? Yes, as Paul just mentioned, that Cole was sighted in the adamantine chain. So yes, Vandus has not found him, but we, the readers, found him because I think we can only assume better than Vandus Hammerhand is what they're trying to tell us.
That's what I heard.
Yeah, right on. All right, that should wrap up the Action Crusade. Any final thoughts before we switch to the Gyran one, the green one? All right, cool beans. Here we go. We've done it. We've switched. Could you guys feel it in your bones? Yes, you could. All right. Is there a preamble that we need to do before we get into the plot of this one, like we did with the Action Crusade that I missed? Any other things that folks need to know going into this?
God, I hope not.
Yeah. Awesome.
Nope.
We probably covered it at the top. So I think the first thing we learn is that although there is a contingent of the Hallowed Knights left over after Gardas' defeat at Fort Gardas, as I had mentioned before, that means the crusade is too strong. They have to shed some of the strength. And so the Hallowed Knights agree to escort some of the refugees from these battles back to Hammerhall Gyran, thus eliminating the Stormcast from the current Gyran crusade. Convenient, but also I guess that makes sense. I can't give them a hard time for that. That tracks. And so they head back, and the Gyran crusade heads on up to and through the Scabrous Sprawl, is that what it's called? That feels right.
Yeah.
Scabrous Sprawl. Yep.
Sure. Excellent. There are some survivors who weren't part of the crusade initially, but who through, I don't know, not necessarily coercion, but loyalty and respect to the fallen, decide to join this crusade. And so they take the coin Malleus, which is pretty neat. Kudos to them. And I'll stop here. Did you guys have any other thoughts about where this crusade finds itself as they move onward to their goals?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that the crusade is led by Silithorian, who is a Free Guild general, a pretty cool character. Seems like a level-headed lady. Not a special character, does not have a unique model for those keeping score at home. But
Target on her back.
Yeah, they do mention she is both. She is like one of her parents is a reclaimed from Guyran, and one is Azurite. So she has like a strong affinity to the land and to nature. Maybe she's more respectful than the kind of the average citizen in Hammerfall.
Yeah.
And so she is kind of brokering between the two, because the Sylvaneth and the cities, the Dawnbringers, are kind of both together, but there's a lot of tension between the two, and she kind of brokers and plays a diplomatic role between the two sides.
Yeah. And this carries over from like what we see of her in book 2, because the Action Crusade just like ran forward and they've just been getting pummeled since. But Thorian has been very careful. She's been utilizing her scouts. She's been utilizing like the Jade Magic wizards. She's a lot more respectful of the realm. And Paven, like you were saying, like this is really helping her, especially with her relationship with the Sylvaneth. Like, hey, maybe if we don't punch everything we see, we can make friends.
A lot of time is spent in this book about this like tension and then the resolution of the tension. I think on the Action Crusade, time was spent on battles and like adversaries, but like this is considered its own, in some ways, fight between like the simmering tensions between the Dawnbringers and the Sylvaneth, and then the resolution through the efforts of what's her name, Thorian. So
yeah,
there's a different type of quote unquote battle.
Well, and as opposed to the last one where they're like, oh, we're still fighting battles and terrible things are happening. They're actually mourning the loss of Gardas, which I thought was interesting. They talked about how they were mourning the loss of Gardas in Hammerhall Guyran as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a much more somber tone, even though they both lost cities. It was more of like, this specific person is gone and we don't know if he's coming back. And like, he was a hero. So it definitely is a different tone than we get, especially when we start talking about Vandus, and everybody's like, Vandus is like totally leaving us alone, and like this is terrible, and why is this happening? So
it's because they knew that Gardas had a model. Like even in fiction, they knew that.
It's also just confirmation that the cursed skies are still around, which is nice. You don't hear about those too often in the other realms.
Wonder why that would be. So the tension is sort of results of the effort, like I said, through Thorian's a foot in each side of her experience or heritage. I think she's able to win over the Sylvaneth, and they agreed to, continue the peace or the tenuous peace that they've had thus far. I think Drisha like leaves. She's like, screw this place. Like too kumbaya for me. I'm not interested. And Boogie's out of there. And so they continue on and they head towards the Scabrous Sprawl, and they reach it, and Lord knows it ain't pretty because it never is. What do they see? What do they find when they arrive? Oh, sorry. I always jump ahead. I'm sure. What did I miss?
I want to talk about the Scabrous Sprawl a little bit.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
OG,
I didn't miss it then. Yeah.
It's an OG Age of Sigmar location. It was corrupted by Skaven, I think, Clan Pestilence at some point. This is also where Behemoth fell, who was the Titan who was the father of all Gargants. He was asleep here for a while, and then Archaon wanted to corrupt him and bring him over to Chaos, and then the Celestant Prime was forced to kill him with one of the great bolts of Sigmar, which eventually led to the Sons of Behemoth being spawned. So his bones are here. Since then, the Rite of Life made it nicer, and it was one of the good things that the Rite of Life did that the Everqueen enacted in that ritual, and so it's kind of come back to life, been a little nicer. And in the bones of where Behemoth fell, a little city sprung up.
Yeah.
A nice little city. What is the city called? I forgot.
Titan's Rest.
Titan's Rest. So a little city was
Stereo.
Because he's just sleeping.
And also, one more thing. We have a little bit of classic Age of Sigmar 1 weirdness. There's this thing floating overhead, a giant island called the Great Green Torque, which is like a what kind of shape is it?
Collar shaped.
A collar-shaped island that is really huge, massive. It has 12 seasons on the island. Some of those seasons are Nurgle seasons, which is bad. On the tip of the collars are 2 giant castles. And then there's a little tiny, like, weird thing that reaches from the floating island to the ground. They call the umbilicus.
Yeah, the umbilicus.
Don't love. But it's just this awkward looking giant thing just above the scabrous sprawl.
Yeah, good catch up for the sprawl.
Yeah. And I was just going to add that, like, it's interesting because the beginning, like Realm Gate Wars and everything, you hear all this and you're like, oh, that people, before we really got to know Age of Sigmar, it's like, well, that's too outlandish. That's too high magic, floating islands. What is this? And now it's like, oh, that's nice. A big floating island. That's pretty cool. It's like home.
I miss Age of Sigmar, some of the really wacky and wild stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
Where are the floating molten rivers of metal that are like killing everybody? Come on, like I want.
Why did they start giving us so many farmers? Who asked for all these farmers? I don't.
Why am I farmers?
Boring.
Yeah, highfalutin fantasy.
But interestingly enough, the reason I think it works is because we're seeing it from normal people's perspective, and they're just like, "Oh yeah, that's the floating island." Yeah. Like it hits differently when it's just like some dude who's like, yeah, it's the floating islands, whatever.
Also, I'll mention the Great Green Torque does not come up in this story.
No, it's just fun. Yeah,
it's just there.
Yeah.
It didn't occur to me until right now. Maybe this is a later conversation, but I'm jumping ahead. So sorry. I can dish it, but I can't take it. In that between the 2 stories, these are very Realm Gate War referenced stories. And that's maybe a theme that we can dig into. The fact that you all nodded in unison means there's a lot to talk about, and now ain't the time to do it. So yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Here's a Will theory.
Yeah, tell me.
Everyone's got all these theories about the 4th edition box whenever that comes. I think it's just going to be a 1-for-1 remake of the 1st edition box.
They can do it better.
With new models.
We can improve it. I mean, that's another prediction. I wouldn't be surprised if Vandus gets a new model at some point. So anyways, and almost assuredly cool. Let's keep going. All right, so they roll up to the sprawl. Did they start hearing stuff now too? I'm trying to think. What senses something's wrong first?
Okay. The first thing is they have all these like lore things. So they've been telling stories about this is a bad place. We don't want to go here. And so this is like, the boogeyman. Oh, no, that's the scabrous sprawl. This is a terrible idea. Nobody should ever go there. Right. So they've got some of this like, okay, I guess we have to go here, and it is what it is. But the other thing that we have is that the air actually, the one effect of the Great Green Torque is that the air becomes green, and it's definitely like foggy, misty place. So you can't see for very far, which when everybody is set up in the Castellite formation, where Talia Vedra was like, hey, this might not be great for like every single place in the realms. It's really good for like open places where you have a lot of sight lines. Like that's really good. But then, we're going to go into this place where there aren't any sight lines and it's super foggy, but I'm sure it'll be fine because we've got these really cool shields. So,
and tree people, friends.
And then they hear the screaming.
But also, things are not well in the forest. Like, it's not a nice little Gyran forest. It's actually got a hunger to it. It's got a weird vibe. I don't know if we can mention that, like, little pits with teeth are opening up. The trees are starting to cannibalize themselves. I don't know what that would look like. I had a little trouble picturing, like, a tree cannibalizing itself. But they mention this forest is acting more like Gur than Gyran.
Yeah.
So not a good sign.
No.
Yeah.
I always, just as an aside, I always thought it was hard to all the realms similarities. I always thought Gur and Gyran were the 2 most similar. Like the difference between trees and beasts is all very wild and stuff. So to see it happen there, I'm like, oh snap! Like
we have that green mist. We have like all this weird stuff happening, and everyone's thinking like, well, this is spooky. Hopefully, like we can figure out what's going wrong. And then we hear the horrifying screams as they realize what exactly is going on here, which is ogres.
Surprise.
Surprise. I had mentioned what I really liked about Bail Grimnir showing up is because they looked at the map and he was nearby. We're following this crusade and we're coming to Titan's Rest, which is a huge behemoth. Like, it's literally behemoth. He's huge. So obviously the sons of behemoth would be around here. But we just saw them back there. So who's hanging out in the stomach of behemoth? It's got to be ogres, because they love food and they love eating, and they're going to be doing their own weird stuff here.
Are they by a maw path too? I guess it doesn't show it on the map, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning. We mentioned that city, Titan's Rest, before. Long smashed. King Brood smashed it a while back, and he's not even here anymore. And it's the ogres that moved in, and and as Will mentioned, they like the symbology of having a big kitchen inside the former belly of a giant hungry gargant.
Sure. And although they're not gargants themselves, there is some sort of unifying thread line between the forces of destruction, and I think they probably would still give him due reverence in that, although he may not be a direct servant of the gulping god, I'm sure he eats some. I mean, he was eating some gnarly stuff, so you can see the connection there. Across those races and sort of factions, which I thought was neat. So the Dawnbringers are, trying to inch closer, but I think their scouts are getting fallen into the maw pits, and that's, I think, where some of the screams are coming through. And unless I'm jumping too far ahead, a battle breaks out when both sides sort of realizes that the other is there. The Gorgers are coming out of nowhere and gorging on people. It's pandemonium.
Well, and you mentioned the Gorgers, which is the other brand new war cry warband that came out. So we have another situation of that narrative in those models tying into the overarching narrative.
Yep.
And man, they make this actually you can understand why the mortals are terrified of these things.
Yeah.
Because the pictures of the models, they're covered in blood. They're these horrifying screams. They're not big lumbering ogres like we're used to. They are muscular and lean and feral. And if they're not eating you and clawing into you, the ground is.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't do that.
You're peace out. I'm done.
Or I just dive into the ground and be all right, well, that's the end of this. Woo.
Hey, here we go.
Yeah.
I want to cut away from this battle real quick and check on our old boy Kragnos. So,
What's he doing?
Do we have a Kragnos report from the field?
Did it. Yeah, they get through the realm gate. It's water based. So they splash out. They're in the Scabbra sprawl. Uh-oh.
Convenient.
Yeah. They're in the old Drawgruth. Is that right?
Drawgruth.
Got it.
Drawgruth. Settlement, which is Kragnos' people. No survivors. Bad news. Kragnos is upset. And Gobsprak's there. And he's like, oh, man, sorry, bro. Let me know what I can do. However, there is signs that say, hey, if there are any Drogu still alive, we went this way. He has the Cruel Roy's, spray paint over all that stuff. Doesn't know. And I'm like, what? And then they mentioned that Gobsprak was not here to placate Kragnos. He was here to get rid of him. And I'm like, he is tricking him.
He got him.
I didn't see this coming.
The god that can only be tricked is getting tricked once again.
You know how he's the god of tricks? Kragnos is the god of being tricked.
Yeah.
Well, that's fine. All right. Thank you for that Kragnos update. If any further updates arise, please interject and let us know.
I'm on in this situation.
Yes. Okay. Battles. As you might expect, the Dawnbringers, because they lost their Stormcast, yes, they have Sylvaneth. They're doing what they can to hold off these ogres, but things are not looking good. Ogres' home turf, apparently, in which case the turf is spiraling jaws of teeth and stuff. Things are not great. So the leader of the Sylvaneth, which is that something Piper dude, he's got a name with T's in it. Tethamir. It's right in front of me. Sounds like I have
got names with T's in it. That guy.
Tethamir. Yeah, no, I can picture words holistically. So he realizes things are not going well. Things have taken a turn. So he starts playing I was going to say a jaunty tune. It's actually the opposite of a jaunty tune. It's the most discordant, like, it sounds like this terrifying, terrible screeching song on his little pipe. And everybody's like, whoa, man, like things are bad, but you're making things worse with that song, man. You really ruining our vibe here. But as we find out soon enough, it's a song of summoning or something. And then it's a call for help. And as is the trend in this book, who comes cresting over the hill to come save the day? Someone we did not expect. I didn't expect this character. Brand new person. Who wants to tell me about Belthanos?
So Belthanos is basically like we've lost Kurnoth, right? Like Kurnoth isn't here because he got killed way back when. And so what we have now is we have the essence of him. So basically we've got a hunt master. And the hunt master is Belthanos himself. And he's got this moment of, I'm leading the hunt. And it kind of talks about how in the background, if he stops leading the hunt, then all memory of Kurnoth will disappear into the realms. And talks a little bit later about how, like, all right, so we've got this emissary of a god, but he's listening to this other god in Ilariel. Like, what's going on there? And it's like, yeah, but she's got Kurnoth's spear. So that's the last, like, vestige of his memory. So basically, he is the master of the hunt. And because he is Kurnoth, there's this kind of interesting thing where we have these guys called Kurnothi. We might have a Warcry warband, or not, sorry. We might have an Underworlds warband of Kurnothi. And turns out he's going to lead all of them into the Scabrous Sprawl. And when I'm talking about Kurnothi, if you don't know what they are elves, but they have been changed into, say, deer, but with the body of an elf on the upper torso, or cats, say, for some reason. So we have an actual full-on Kurnoth force that is coming in and attacking. So Kurnoth hunters we've had for forever, but now we get the first thorn. So the leader of the hunt is Belthanos and all those Kurnothi. So we get this complete other influence from the Sylvaneth that we are moving forward with, which awesome. We had Draika, we have Ilariel, and now we've got Kurnoth.
Well, I was just gonna say, I thought it was odd in that, like, normally with these campaign books, like, you get your one shot, whatever your army is, you get your one, like, visit, or, you know, with the spotlight, and then, like, it just moves on to the next thing. There's like 24, 25 armies out there. We got to churn through a lot of them, but, like, we've got a couple examples now of armies a double dip in, and it seems a little unfair. I love Sylvaneth, but the fact that, like, they were pretty featured in the last one and featured here, it seems a little repetitive. But all right, we got a cool model out of the team. Go ahead, Will.
I was going to say, on that note, I even said last episode, like, man, it would kind of suck for the Sylvaneth players if, like, their one thing was a small lore blurb and they don't even get a cool model or nothing.
You're right.
Immediately proven wrong in the next book.
Yeah, that is true.
But yeah, like Paul was saying, they show up to start fighting, and immediately it just turns into their favor. There's some wild stuff like toxic flowers just enveloping the ogres and killing them. And then the Sylvaneth just straight up moved the trees out of the way. So we had mentioned that, the Castlade formation doesn't really work in densely forested areas. So they just moved the trees and they shot all of the Gorgers until they basically died.
Sure. Initially, I'm like, well, that's kind of lame. Actually, no, that's cool. So after I thought about it more, I'm like, yeah, right? That's a good idea. I respect that, especially, like, taking advantage of both sides' strengths and, like, using them to in unison. I thought was helpful.
It's one of the things that, like Paven had mentioned earlier, that Thorian had done was, like, brokered that piece of, hey, if you help us out, we'll try not to blow up as many trees as we can. So the Sylvaneth just moved the tree.
Sure. It's very much a greater than the sum of their parts type situation too. Like, they build off of each other, which is kind of cool. Like you said, the battle kind of starts to turn a little bit in that they, I don't know, classic, the leaders of the ogres start getting trees rammed up them and blow up and stuff like that. Actually, Chris Lang had asked, listener of the show, any sniff of new named ogre characters in the book. I mean, I don't think they're going to be big named characters considering that they are now dead. But like there was a couple named individuals. Did you guys have what Bulk Lumber Gulp was an ogre? Was there?
He was a butcher.
Was a butcher. Yeah, I think maybe there's one or two. Do you guys have any other names of ogres in here that were fun that stood out to you?
I think that was the main one.
Yeah, it's just the one.
That's
right?
the one I have written down. Slaughtermaster Bulk.
Yeah, Slaughtermaster.
Gross. So yeah, I mean they're in there, but they're not going to have much big impact because they got treed. But so things are looking good for the Dawnbringers. Classic help from unlikely sources coming out of nowhere saves the day. But as the ogres are cleaned up, sort of routed, eliminated, there's still like this pounding off in the distance that arose in this battle, but it's still going. And Will raised his finger like he wanted to say something.
I'd say before we move on to that, one last cool thing in that fight, Marshal Thorian, she gets cool magic powers. There's no better way to say it. She just unlocks the innate magic inside of her, which she's just a free guild marshal. Like on foot, so it's like a basic war scroll, but her character has cooler things than that war scroll would have for the model she represents, which I want to see more of. Let the characters do cooler things than the generic war scroll has.
So something loud and pounding, which is a theme we've heard before, is on its way, and the Dawnbringers have to prepare themselves. Should we, at this point in the book where there's a different sidebar, which I thought was a little jarring, but I loved it. So like I was torn. I was of two minds about the sidebar. The scene switches to wherever Alariel is holding court. I shouldn't say wherever. Apparently it's where the Oak of Ages Past is. It now occurs to me, which is a set location in the world. It's alive. It kicked out some acorns a few years ago and generated a whole new faction or a whole new unit for the Sylvaneth. She's standing there and holding a council, perhaps, with some other big names, with the likes of Krondus and Karazai are the two brother big dragon Draconith dudes, as well as surprised Lord Croak coming out of left field. I didn't see that one coming. And they're all hanging out, having a nice little chat. Alariel comes to the conclusion, along with everybody else, that Kragnos has got to go. It took you a while to figure that one out, Alariel, but okay. And they hatch a plan, and true to form, second verse, same as the first, it sounds like they're going to try and like trap or ambush this guy. We don't learn. They're going to trick him. We don't learn the explicit details of what they're planning to do, but it seems sly. I think they're going to like try to lure him to the edge of the realm or something like that. But beyond that, I don't think we know too much more other than there's visions of like a big old battle at the end with like, I think Karazai going toe to toe with the Horned Boy.
Well, and part of like that is because Croak shows everyone the visions because he doesn't talk. He just shows everyone pictures, which is like anyone on social media who just shares a GIF instead of words.
I love the idea of Croak as an Instagram influencer.
Right. But part of it is like Alariel is like, why is Krondus cool with this? His brother might die. And she's thinking about Kurnoth, who was her lover and died. And so Croak has to console her and like, he just puts a hand on her shoulder and doesn't say a word.
Well, he doesn't move his body because it's a mummy. He does show her a vision of Balthanos and just being like, hey, the spirit of Kurnos, as long as we keep his memory, he still lives on inside of us.
Yeah.
Metaphorically taps her on the heart and says, he in here.
But a couple of interesting things that here is one, Lord Croak is one of the original Kragnos trickers.
Sure.
So he's like, dude, this is so easy. Just like do anything. So, like, fall for it.
He's like, hey, watch him do this, and he around this.
But also it's interesting. They kind of imply or like explicitly say that one of the reasons Alariel was so keen to enact the right of life is she thought it would bring Kurnoth back or Kurnos back. But it didn't. And he's like, and so she was like, hey, if he didn't come back then with all this crazy shit that I popped off, like he doesn't seem like he's coming back. But yeah, maybe kind of. Yeah, we got the first Thorn. He's pretty good.
Yeah, well, and he takes it further and says, like, no matter what's the line? No matter how many centuries it takes, Kurnoth is not lost to you. So he's saying, like, it probably will happen. It may not happen for hundreds of years. It may not even happen in the lifespan of a game called Age of Sigmar. But it may happen.
Oh,
that's a question I want to ask, and I'll ask in a minute. But I feel like there's more things to point out. At one point in the story, I thought it was interesting that Illyrio gets defensive. That like her right of life freed Kragnos, and that's maybe why she's playing into the idea that she's now here to help trap him. But at the same time, she's like, hold up, though. Like, yeah, sure, I freed him, but it was your fault because you killed his race. Like, hey, dragons, you did this in the first place, so don't come after me. Like, you've got blood on your hands too, which I thought was like, all right, well, let's just drag up the past, I guess.
Yeah, and these were also the original like Kragnos trappers.
Yeah,
so Lord Croak was one of the people that, and so were these two dragons. They were some of the folks that trapped him originally. So it's like getting the crew back together.
If you were going to get
exactly
council together, these are the people you'd pick for sure. They've
it's a retired heisters, like one last job, one last trick. We got them.
Getting too old for this. So back to the point about whether or not Kurnoth exists or could come back. Did you guys read this as Croak saying that the first Thorn of Kurnoth is as close to Kurnoth as we're going to get, or is he implying that Kurnoth himself would come back eventually? How did you interpret what he was saying?
He'll be back eventually. The way that for Balthanos reads is like he's like the spirit manifestation of the god, and he must ever be hunting. And as soon as he hunts, the flicker that is left of Kurnoth will go out. So he's hanging on, kind of in a metaphysical, metaphorical sense through this one avatar. And then maybe he can slowly coalesce power. Also, did you guys know that Kurnoth was killed by Horticlux Slimux?
Which is the biggest letdown.
Oh, how embarrassing.
Yeah. The dude has scissors. That's his weapon. Scissors.
He's the guard. Third tier demon Nurgle character. Yeah.
It's a snail. Like he's literally the hunter, grumpy, and it's a snail. And he's like, "Oh, I didn't have any salt. I'm sorry."
It's not even a great unclean one. Like your point, like he's just a plague bear kind of, which is insane.
The thing is, Kurnoth could come back at any time. He's just really embarrassed about it.
Yeah, he doesn't want to show his face. I couldn't tell if this was a scenario where like the avatar of Kurnoth was always going to be what we now used as like his stand-in. Like I think GW kind of does this sometimes where the big thing can't come back. So like the perpetual stand-in is what's going to be like the equivalent for him. But it sounds like we don't read it that way. We read it as Kurnoth coming back.
Yeah.
Good. I want that. So I'm glad that we agree. Anything else from this little cutout other than we now learn there's a plan afoot? I wonder why they're talking about Kragnos right now. It seems like a weird time to bring him up.
We do have a patron question from Will, Lord of the Friend Times. Also, Will Lawless. Sometimes he changes his username. Do we get info and insight into Dracothian society, culture, and their inner lives? Do they get a voice of their own rather than just being part of the Stormcast War menagerie? And this little sidebar is like the closest we'll get. It's the Draconith princes working with Alariel. There's not a Stormcast in sight, and they're cleaning up a mess they started in the Age of Myth. And we don't see their entire culture, but we do see these two brothers kind of like dealing with the situation and how they've changed throughout the ages and maybe saying goodbye. Because like Alariel is like pretty sure Karazai's not going to make it.
Yeah. Well, but not only are we getting the two brothers, but we're also getting a bunch of younger Draconith as well. Mm-hmm. And this is the second time that we've had this mentioned, because when Cathorax showed up, he also showed up with a bunch of young Draconith as well.
Mm-hmm.
Cathoric's really cool because he's actually doing the coolest thing, which he's searching Shyesh for the underworld of dragons.
Yes,
trying to figure out where that is, and that's a cool ass Age of Sigmar quest.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah.
He doesn't find it though.
No, not yet. Well, and he's an elder Draconith, not because he's from the Age of Myth like these two princes, just because he got turned old by magic. So he's like 30 years old, but his knees are creaky and his back doesn't work right. He's grumbling this whole time.
I feel attacked, Will. I feel targeted.
I'm describing me.
You're older than he is, so there's more of an insult.
Yeah, that's true. Any other thoughts from this cool little sidebar? What are the highlights for the book for me?
No, it's just cool that we're finally like at the level that we were in Broken Realms. We're like, okay, now the gods are our players again, like our play pieces. Like, okay, now it can have meta narrative wide ramification. Which I think, I don't know what the group prefers, but it seems to be where themes feel like more meaningful. Like the game will change or something rather than. I
like this book where it's both. We're following a mortal crusade, and they're just like, as they're going through this map, like, oh, the gods are here, and the gods are doing stuff. Now let's go to the next part of the map. And there's these different named characters that have lived here this whole time, and they're doing cool stuff.
Yeah, I like when there's the ground level perspective of bigger things happening. So like it's big things happening, but you're getting it from you're getting it from a point of view that is closer to me and you than it is God's. I think that's like the balance that I particularly enjoy. And up until this, like this is thus far in this series, this is the best example of that. So
yeah, it'd be cool if we had like these mortals in like Guyran and their perspective of like a big god bearing down on them. I feel like I'd really like that.
Will,
what?
Your wish is going to be granted, man. Let me tell you about what's next. Thump, 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 the loud pounding sound that is always the telltale sound of Kragnos coming out of nowhere off the top rope. Or no, wait, no, rewind it back. By God, is that Kragnos' music?
Yep.
There you go.
His entrance music is here.
He comes rolling up, stomping on fools. And so he's, was sent off in this direction, presumably by the Cruel Boys, because he's, chasing down remnants of his past culture. He finds some humies that get in his way, and he's going to put them under his hooves. And so what are you going to do against the god of earthquakes?
Get wrecked.
Yeah, get wrecked for sure. Especially considering that the Cruel Boys are right there along with him, right? So like he's charging in the front, and they're sneaking in the back, putting up numbers against the Dawnbringers.
I love it because it's like they're hiding where they just finished this fight against the Ogres. They're inside the rib cage of a god, and that's where they're hiding from a different god, as Kragnos is just like beating on the ribs, trying to get at the soft people inside.
Sure, he brings down a lot of stuff in doing so. But as is the theme of this book, who comes out of nowhere? And it is surprise individual we were just talking about in that little cutout. Got here real quick. Krondus comes swooping in, and that's the blue Draconith, the more regal Azerian one who's got like the chest plate. And he comes to distract, fight, save the Dawnbringers as they start battling. Krondus soon realizes that he ought not get too close to
hold on, Aaron, if you don't mind. I thought this was going to be one of my patented even god battles.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have Kragnos coming in, smashing Dawnbringers, not even close. We've talked about the hierarchy of characters in the story. Gods are at the top. Nobody that's not a god can beat a god. But we do have a big dragon that shows up. Krondus is coming in. Kragnos hates Krondus because the dragons genocided his whole people. Mm-hmm. So really rightfully angry. They do some initial confrontation, and Kragnos takes his mace and kind of whoops Krondus's dragon butt.
Yep.
So Krondus backs up a bit, gonna try to pull kind of like kite him at ranged, casting spells because he's the wizard dragon, if you remember. But that doesn't do anything because Kragnos has the spell immunity shield, so that doesn't work. Krondus is like, okay, I'll just trick him and fly away, and he'll chase me. But Kragnos ain't gonna fall for that again. Fool me twice, you don't fool me twice, right? He just goes back and keeps whooping on the Dawnbringers and starts hammering the bones, knocking all the bone shards down onto the humans. Oh no, don't do it to us. Kragnos got to come back in. So he comes back in and goes into melee. Big mistake. This is a destruction character. Kragnos, ready for it, smashes him with the shield and then grabs him by the neck. He's going to choke him out one-handed, break its spine. I'm like, oh no, I thought the other dragon was the one that's going to die, but it looks like Kragnos is going to die. And then what happens? Boom! The Dawnbringers are back. They use cannons and they pepper up his sides with all their little bullets and stuff. And it's kind of like shooting Godzilla, like, you know. It kind of just pisses him off, but it does weaken his grip just enough for Kragnos to back away, breathing hard. You know, he could have killed me. And Kragnos escapes and just starts booking it. And you know what? Kragnos can't help it. He can't help it. He's takes the bait. He gets tricked. It's in his nature. And then we lose Kragnos over the hill.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. Loved it.
Oh, Paven just signed off. Oh, he just left.
He's gone.
He dropped his mic. I saw him do it.
Well, the funny part is, like you mentioned, we see him over the hill. He does get, like, Karazai does his little ambush, and like they get ready. I'm like, oh man, 2 dragons versus Kragnos, and then Kragnos leaves.
It's like, peace out.
Like,
sorry, brother.
No, you could have done a 2v1, and then like,
I'm like so hype. I'm like, are they going to do us a little like killing Nagash in like book 3 of Broken Realms, or was it book 2 of Broken Realms? They killed Nagash.
2. Yeah.
2. I was like, what? And I was like, oh my god, they're going to kill Kragnos. I'm like, good riddance. But no, they leave us on this cliffhanger. They leave us here. Karazai charges in. They're at the edge of the realm. We're at this cliff. The Seraphon are in position. Like, this is the trap. This is the trick. And then it cuts away.
Yeah, they do the Rocky 2 ending. They both punch each other in the face and like freeze frame.
What had me going, though, is the name of the section is called To End an Era, which, like,
yeah,
it was like, boom, that's it. That's the end of it.
That's how the end of era. You kill the big god.
Yeah, no such luck. So I can't wait. I mean, presumably, yeah, next book, or I guess book after. We'll see. And that, I think, for the most part, ends the scenes that we see in the Gairan Crusade. But there, as we've mentioned before, it wouldn't be a Dawnbringers book if there weren't other story hints peppered throughout or collated at the end in a series of interesting missives that give us hints as to what might be coming. Did you guys have any other storylines that these have been hinted at? Or seeded in here that you guys want to talk about? I'd be curious to know what your faves were.
I mean, I'm gonna shout from the rooftops yet again about the Estrella Soulbright little story section, which is it's coming more and more clear. So when we last saw her, and just like an addendum at the end of book 2, she was also looking for a cure, just like Ionis was, of the Stormcast flaw in reforging, and she's in Shaiish in the Summer Keep, trying to find this prince who can make people feel good. In this book, she is just stepping out of a portrait, which is a realm gate, which I think is super cool, and it matches the regality of a big noble prince who would live in a castle like this. She's no longer in Shaiish, but is in Gairan, which is where these books take place. Wild. And she's looking for the Summer King. And a bunch of hungry eyes are staring at her as she walks through this Gairan fortress, eyes that could only hold madness.
Oh my gosh. I can't think of a single thing that would apply to, though. Actually, honestly, the last time
I think Bretonnians.
Yeah, I think so. The last time I saw glowing eyes, I totally thought it was one thing and it ended up being a different thing. And so I wouldn't be surprised if they're tricking
me.
It's
Be'lakor again.
It's Be'lakor again.
Yeah.
I'm glad you got my reference.
Yep.
Tricked me.
You missed the freshly repaired flesh carpet that she stepped on when she came through the realm gate.
Sure.
I thought that was normal, so I
Yeah.
she was like, this repair is flat. This repair is fresh.
Yeah.
yeah.
So good.
It's only been mended within the last few days.
Okay, so a couple questions about Astria Soulbright. Patron of the show, Will, Lord of the Friend Times. Is there anything to indicate the teaming up of Astria Soulbright and Ionis Cryptborn, given that they're presently pursuing the same quest? I think it's becoming clear no. And at first I was thrown off that I'm like, oh, they're doing the same thing. That seems redundant. Like, let's figure out the connection there. But it's very clear now that they are heading in sort of opposite directions, despite the fact that they started with the same goal, which I get. That makes sense.
Are there 4 of these books?
Well, we were talking about this before you logged on. I don't think we know.
We don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can talk more about that at some point.
There are 4 currently announced books.
There's that. Similarly, patron of the show, Mealhorn, was asking why Ionis, Cryptborn, and Soulbright meet in search of a cure. I think they're heading in different directions at this point.
Well, and it's sort of like how they announce for this book series, like one city will succeed and one city will fail. I feel like one of these two isn't going to have a good time searching for this cure. I feel like we may see here in a future book who exactly fails and how hard do they fail.
Yep, exactly right. So it seems like Cryptborn has taken Reforged Stormcast for some mission that we don't know about. And Soulbright is going to stumble across some Flesh Eater Quartz, would be my guess.
What?
Yeah, right?
They since book 1, which is thankfully we're tying something to book 1, they're really setting up the Summer King as maybe the big bad for the Gyronite Crusade, because they're heading right towards his spot.
Or is he the big good?
Oh, yeah. Especially considering Nagash is like not keeping him.
He's not around. He can't tell him what to do.
So I had a question, and this is a kind of a lore-based question, but
you're on the right podcast, man.
I know, right? The Gyronite Crusade is heading towards the neck.
Yeah.
And if you look on the map, is the neck of Behemoth? Because when they were being attacked by Kragnos, and they were in the neck of Behemoth.
So it's not the neck of Behemoth. Like, it's further up. It's called the neck, but it's more like almost like an isthmus.
So it's like
I don't think it's connected to Behemoth. I think they're just like, that looks like a neck. Done.
Okay. I was just curious because, there was the neck and then there's the neck, and I don't know which the neck we're talking about.
All the coolest places are on isthmuses.
Yeah.
You ask me.
I think you're mad.
I mean, both things can be true. All right, so that's a pretty cool story. Do you guys have other stories at the end there that you thought were particularly interesting?
Yeah, I liked the we circle back on Grobsbach.
Gobsprack.
There you go.
All right, Grobsbach.
I love the typing in the notes that nobody did it, or it was not written the same way twice, and none of them are right.
Gabberspork.
So he's back in Gur. He's bounced out, and he's talking to a bunch of orcs, and he's saying, "Hey, Gork told me to tell Kragnos to do this, which is fight a bunch of people in Gyran." And all the orcs are like, "Let's join Kragnos. He's got a great scab." He's like, "Nah, Kragnos doing his own thing. It's going to take him a while. But he told me that he wants you all to go smash all the Umi cities."
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, really?" And they're like, "Yeah, but you got to, follow me because I'm in with all these guys." So we have Gobsprack taking control of a Wa in Gur to go smash some things. So the tricking worked, as it always does. And he is now in control of the Wa. I feel like this was a lot of steps for a plan, because I think people already thought he talked to Gorka Morka. I don't know why he had to also talk to Kragnos and then get rid of Kragnos later. Maybe he thought he didn't actually like to hang out with Kragnos. He's too different.
I think that's what it was.
Yeah, it was like, this guy's gonna get me killed. Also, so that's fun. I'm curious where that kind of
that I can't predict, right? The other ones seem pretty clear, like generally where they're headed. I don't know what the deal is with that. I don't know what they're trying to do.
Is this the time for Gordrak to get his groove back? I know we talked about that before.
I think so.
Yeah, because the Fist of Gork, the voice of Mork, we're almost there.
Yeah, I think it's really like it's designed to unshackle the greenskins from Kragnos because they're like, let's we've got this cool new god and the orcs are following him. They're like, well, you know what? But we want to do different things with these orcs. And they should do orc things, not Kragnos things. Let's just slice him away, put him over there so they can go do orc stuff.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. Yeah, it could be just that, and that's worthwhile enough and simple enough an explanation.
Yeah.
Well, they're also implying that the Droguth are alive, and so maybe there's a Centaur destruction faction that they want to do.
I would be so happy if that's what happens.
Also, what the orcs call Gairan is the big planty realm.
And so shall I from here on.
Yeah.
The Big Planty.
Yeah.
It's also my rapper name.
Big
Big Planty. I'm Lil Planty. And then another story at the end, which I think we'd already dissected a little bit, but there's a missive from a Hunter Prime to a Lord Imperator talking about how Ionis Cryptborn had swooped in and saved them in some dire situation. But after the battle, they have some missing Stormcast. Where'd they go? Don't worry, we're not going to stop until we find them. But it is odd that they've disappeared, and we haven't heard that they've been reforged. They haven't been sent to Azir. Where could they have gone? With the implication being that maybe Cryptborn has something to do with it. So,
yeah, we saw Cryptborn leaving with a giant sack
that was writhing and wriggling. Yeah. Had Stormblades and Stormhammer sticking out of it. It's pretty silly. Were there other, or is it just the three at the end there?
Those were the three, and then there's a final little bit about each crusade.
Yeah. Anything interesting in there? I don't recall.
So we mentioned like 8 times before this that Corgus Cool shows up, and he, looks off from a distance menacingly at the crusade, but he is more wise now, and he doesn't just charge in. And he has a greater task than killing the Hammerhand. And he also mentions the Gortide also fought trolls and goblins at points. So I don't know if 6 armies have fought the Trog army by now. So is that resolved?
How are they still around?
It seems like there's enough trolls as needed at any point in the story, but
I think they needed the trolls, at least in this story, to give a reason for the Dawnbringers to keep running. Because if they didn't have that thing nipping at their heels, then they you could argue, well, they could rest, they could stop, but they needed an impetus to keep them.
Do get to rest.
Well, finally, at the end of it, they needed the beginning of the book to keep them moving, such that they could earn the reprieve at the end.
The Ideneth, as an apology for killing so many people, give them their white noise tides magic, and everybody gets to sleep nice for one time.
Snoozes.
Their water magic. And then Paul mentioned this earlier. Bats fly in front of the moon.
Mm-hmm.
I was very curious what you all thought that was.
Presumably Soulblight. Well, in the same way that Deepkin had a hot second in this book, that could be all it needs to be.
Yeah,
I would hope that's it. That's all the Soulblight is.
Yeah, they just get bats flying.
They were the bats.
Yeah, and then the Giranite one is they're moving forward, and they also get a good time to get some rest because there's just no bad guys in front of them, and they come up to all these different settlements, and they've been deserted, and there's super helpful signs written in red paint. Doesn't look like paint, but the Summer King has been pointing the way for them. And Marshal Thorian is like, man, whoever the Summer King is, he's great. I hope we get to meet this dude, and that I hope he's going to help us fight chaos. Let's go that way.
Ugh. Yeah,
that's going to be good.
Big, obvious big mistake.
No.
Also, all the Sylvaneth leave for reasons.
Because they needed to shear off.
Balthano's got to keep hunting.
Yeah, can't stop.
And Tethamar goes to report to the Everqueen.
Who's busy, by the way, fighting Kragnos. Actually, this all leads into another good question from Flesh Eater 2+ D3 Mortals. symbol. Any hints to the next book's focus factions? So I think we've alluded to a lot of them. If you guys want to rattle off some names to factions that are going to come up.
Fletcher to Courts.
Boom, easy one.
Gortide. Corn Bloodbound.
Also a big one, I think. Will, you got another one?
Nope, Corn.
Sure.
Soulblight.
Soulblight, just because of the bats would be my guess. I wonder how many, and I'm not going to stop to count, but
Possibly
I wonder how
Night Haunt. If we're looking at this map, it's called the Ninth Weight Crossing. I don't know if that feels a little ghosty.
That sounds ghosty.
Well, there's the gates of whatever that are spewing out death magic, so that's probably
the gates below.
Oh, but I guess maybe that's the Soulblight, right? Because that's that side of things.
Well, and I remember the first book, maybe the second book, one of the previous books had a cool little poem they had of the different things the Crusades would fight against. And one of them was like gloom or fear, or it was like a word associated with Night Haunt. So I'm assuming Night Haunt might show up. And then there isn't really a hint in this book, but it's actually a hint from the anniversary preview that they did, which was when they announced this book. They were like, yeah, all of the Dawnbringer books are going to kind of be themed around the different Grand Alliances. Reign of the Brute was destruction. This is order, ... So I kind of figure book 4 is going to be death focused based on some of these hints that we're picking up. But then where does Korgus come in? There must be a secret 5th book.
Ooh, Korgus, cool. Yeah, okay, so I mean, we can bring that up now. Will is of the opinion that there's going to be at least 5 Dawnbringer books. He's on record for speculating that. He has convinced me that is a possibility. I'm not certain that it'll be true. Again, we've looked at the timeline or the trajectory of, I think, just 2023 of the different books that they've announced, and we've seen that there's at least 4 Dawnbringers books. There's no reason to think that they can't go beyond that, especially considering who knows what will come next year between
now and summer, when everyone is speculating we'll get a new edition because it's the 3-year cycle.
Maybe a 5th book, which means, because there's a lot of things to tie up, and there's all sorts of things that we don't know are going to be in the next books that'll sort of fill in the major plot advancements, like the Deepkin event and the Ogre event. Like, those aren't things that were telegraphed in any way, but they still sort of, I hate to call it padding, but will pad out the story in between the big events. And so because of that, I could see how there'd be more than one left, or it'll be a real beefy one otherwise.
I'm with Will. I think there's probably another one. Just both the timing to get us to the summer. We need at least 2 books, given that it's only the fall now. And there seems to be enough open plot threads with Kragnos, the Gortide, the Summer King, and what the hell is Archeon doing? Because the Varengard did show up, or Bellicor, but it did show up in book 1 with Nurgle. And
they even had a title for a new character, Her Highness in Ruin. Who is she? I want to know.
A listener had asked, but since it wasn't in this book, I didn't include it. But yeah.
Oh, I want to go on record that I think Daughters of Cain will be in the next one. There is a place near the neck called the Gulf of Hags.
That tracks.
That feels maybe there are daughters over there.
And that's my point of this book, especially more than the previous one, is the writers are looking at the maps and going, oh, right, we have all these places. This is how we can naturally fit all these different factions in. And we already did that work. Perfect.
It's a very map-driven campaign type thing where going from place to place necessitates some of these investigations of factions.
I really actually like that. I feel like this is more grounded and geographical than a lot of Age of Sigmar stuff. The original maps we got in Age of Sigmar were kind of medieval nonsense maps that they just felt like drawings. But these feel okay, there's a place, and then there's it's next to other things, and those things have ramifications for this story. Yeah. And I think that's good.
And it's so in depth that it makes me think that they're working on a Total War Age of Sigmar game in these 2 areas because they're fleshing out the map so much.
Okay, that's a hashtag.
That's a wild theory. Yeah. But it just is what I thought of it. This reminds me and here's this legendary lord.
I I think last time, every time we talk about which crusade do we think is going to fail, and I think we've said it's been the Gyran one every time. Has anything happened to change y'all's minds?
No. I have the same theory that the Gyran will be a successful Flesh Eater Court crusade.
Yeah.
Not a successful Dawnbringer one.
I can see that being the case.
Yeah.
How about you, Paven?
I am a little bit going the other way because I think, one, they might want to give Corgus Cool a big win.
Yeah.
And him destroying the crusade might be that win. And Isella Thorian, I like the cut of her jib. I think
she's great.
she might have what it takes
to go the distance.
Yeah.
That's cool.
She is great.
Paul, you had a question.
So we got a Warcry expansion of Order versus Destruction. And in the winter, we're getting a Warcry expansion of Order versus Death. So what Order warband do we think we're getting?
Sounds like a question for the Dogs Warcry podcast. If you ask me.
If only.
I think the Order warband will be Sylvaneth.
Could be. Or Kurnothi, perhaps? Seems a little too soon. That's just wish listing. I don't actually think it's true, but that's what my wish list would be.
That'd be cool.
The question is, who's the death? Because we've already gotten Flesh Eaters and Vampires. So there's only 2 left.
Orsiak, Bone Reaper would be really cool.
Yeah. I was going to say Flesh Eaters if they hadn't just gotten one, because in the same way that the city's got a Warcry warband with the army re-release, like you could see how the new Flesh Eater courts, which we assume is coming, new army would also maybe come with the warband then too. But I think it's ruled out.
just got one this year too.
Yep, the Eskurgan.
True.
So I think maybe Nighthaunt, that would be cool.
Sure, and especially with this prediction that Nighthaunt might come up again. We were kind of answering some other listener questions that I want to get on the books because we skipped over some other ones. I want to make sure we got their due. So we can answer some of these to build off of some of our previous responses. Patron of the show, Domir, wanted to know what feels like the biggest enemy of the Dawnbringers at this point. We've cleared out a lot of enemies, but there's still some remain. Who do you think is the biggest enemy besides themselves? Or the realms, I guess, is also a pretty big enemy too. But who do you think the biggest enemy is? Maybe for both, or Crusader, pick one if you so desire.
I think Corgus and the Shore and the Summer King. I feel like those are the 2 ones they're highlighting. I don't know if they're still going to be the biggest enemies, but it's the ones they are putting big signs around and pointing at.
Watch out for these 2. Yeah. Does anybody disagree with those answers?
I feel like if Trug or King Brood wanted to finish the job, they could.
Yeah.
Like they beat the Crusades once on like a home turf, but I don't know. Like, I hope they do something else because those characters were like kicking a lot of butt. But yeah, I don't think they'll show up again.
I'm gonna go with Kragnos because they've set it up of we know what's going to happen, and this is how it's going to happen, and this is where it's going to happen. And I feel like that's way too. We know exactly what's going to happen, so obviously it's going to work the other way.
Or is it going to be a situation where Karazai does have to fight Kragnos, but like on top of the bodies of the Dawnbringers that they stomped on?
They're not even looking; it's just on accident.
Yeah. Awkward. Minerva's asked the question: does it feel like these books have progressively more higher stakes narrative? Yeah, progressively. Yeah, that's what they say. We've got some of the most established characters reappearing and even big more models and such. If this is the case, where else is this leading and what level of changes to the world are we going to see? I think we've already talked about that these are progressively had higher stakes as the scope has grown. So I think we've already touched on that. What level of changes to the world are we going to see? I'm going to steal this one. I think Kragnos is either going away or going to be so diverted that as to not be a big player anymore. So I think that's going to be one of the big ones. Do you guys see any other changes, large changes to the world coming up?
I mean, I feel like that's the big one. It's an end of an era. Like, we'll see more Flesh Eater courts. We'll see more Khorne Bladebound. I don't know if that's going to be like realm shaping changes or just big changes for those factions. But I think Kragnos is the big one.
I have a Paven theory. I think what's gonna happen to Kragnos is they're not gonna trap him under a mountain because he's got a cool model and they're not gonna like get rid of him that way. But what would be cool if they sent him to Ulgu. And he just pops into Ulgu, and he's like super lost, right? Because it's all like he can't find anything. So he's just like running around Ulgu, kind of like out of everybody's way, but also upsetting a lot of the powers there. And that can like start the dominoes going to, shine the light back into Ulgu. And it like gives a good destruction beachhead in Ulgu, which hasn't really happened ever.
Yeah. And what's worse for Kragnos, the god of being tricked, than having Malarian just kind of sit there and he's going to be putting up dummies for him to smash like constantly.
Yeah, that would be funny. Actually, I think it's telling because I think they'll send him somewhere again, and I think it'll be intentional where they send him. I think it'll be on purpose where they being GW. I think it'll be a purpose wherever they send him because that'll illuminate like some down the line situation. Would be my guess.
What if they try and send him somewhere, but it gets messed up? And he ends up in Azir. And that's the first thing we see in Azir.
Skedios.
Yeah, that's not great. But I mean, that'd be fun. Like, I honestly,
Jones and I don't feel like they'd take that one away from Archon.
No. Yeah,
they gotta let him pierce the gates.
Yeah.
But like, how great would it be if like Archaon's been planning this for millions of years? And then there's just like, oh, this god of earthquakes.
They whoopsie Kragnos.
Yep, exactly.
But he's on the other side, so Archaon opens the gates and Kragnos runs through and smashes every.
Actually, I would have loved to have seen. I don't think it'll come up, but I would have loved to have seen Archaon versus Kragnos. Like, what would that fight have been like, or what would that battle have been?
I mean, Kragnos angered Archaon so much that Archaon accidentally lost an entire circle of Varangard.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
True.
There's a little bit of animosity there.
Sure. Another question from patron Domir. What would you like to see from this that we haven't seen yet? I feel like we've done a fair bit of wish listing. Do you have any other? Let's ring it out. Anybody got any other wish list stuff that they want to see that we haven't seen yet? Besides, for me, just every other faction. What do they say? At least 12?
At least 12.
At least 12
so
will get what?
Like new models and rules or something.
Okay, gotcha.
So it's like not even in the story, but
while we're talking, someone count up how many we've gotten so far. But we don't need to distract while we do so. Is there any other things that you guys want to see that we haven't seen yet, or they follow up the question with some kind of regiment or army of renown that you think should be included? So maybe I ask both of those at the same time. What's missing?
An army of renown with spiders.
Classic answer. I say Kurnothi if we're just wish listing.
I want to hear from Gordrak, Archaon, Be'lakor, Slaanesh, maybe Marathi, and it's not Melekith. It's
Malarian.
Malarian, yeah.
Gosh, John,
I want to like all those other big characters that were big question marks. They're giving me a lot of stuff that I didn't know I wanted, but I want some of the stuff like them to pick up some of the plot threads I do want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, it'll be interesting when we do the end of the year's fantasy draft where we ended up from last year, which would be interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Sigmarnalia?
Yeah, there you go. Actually, we should probably start playing that sooner rather than later. All right, cool. Chrisling asks, as we approach the climax of DBC, I love it. Who's got time to say Dawnbringer Crusades? Oh, God, I just did. Is there any indication where the named character... is there any indication what the named characters will turn their attention towards after the series ends? For example, Trug. I think Trug's going to go wherever his headaches take him. Kind of a broad question.
So just kind of running down the list. Karazai and Kragnos, they're going to have their big fight. 2 big boys enter, 1 big boy leaves. Alariel, I don't think there's really much going on with her. I think Belthanos is going off on his hunt. I don't know if he is really doing anything intentionally. I think he's hunting the rest of the Ogres, but what happens after that, who knows? I kind of want to see him and King Broad go at it since they're right next to each other.
Like this? Oh,
yeah, just butting heads. Yeah,
not that kind of. Okay, I see.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think who else is named. We've got the Anvil Smasher, who is in that White Dwarf story. His whole thing is he wants to smash all the cities. We've got Godsbrack, who wants to smash all the cities. We've got the Mounted Orcs, who want to smash all the cities.
Cities are in trouble.
Trug wants to smash all the cities. Braggett wants Trug to smash all the cities.
I'm sensing a trend. I'm sensing a.
Yeah. Gardas is gonna get reforged.
I guess you could ask, what do you think Ionis Cryptborn's going to do? Like, he's up to something. So he's.
Yeah, they opened up a lot more plot threads than they closed in this book.
Yes.
Seems like it,
So it's exciting. There's a lot of ways to go.
Yeah.
And we'll see. I mean,
I wonder how
they're all
many.
Cool. Yeah.
I guess I gotta be careful, but I'll say I wonder how many of these plot threads are intended to be closed up in Dawnbringers, and how many of these plot threads are continuations for like a next.
I think
Yeah.
There's a lot of this is table setting. I imagine a lot of this is table setting for the release next summer that we all feel pretty confident about.
Yeah.
But I don't know which ones are which.
Yeah. Like, I'll say, I think Ionis is going to be a next edition stuff. I don't think we're going to see him again because they made it very clear his story is tied to Shyish. And like, that's where him and his dragon have been. They just popped over to Akshi for hanging out with their friends and then kidnapping other friends and then leaving.
That's how friends treat friends.
Yeah.
But I think that's going to bring us to our final thoughts, your final review of this here book. So, in no particular order, which is to say the order that we normally go in, Paul, I'd love to hear, what did you think of this here Dawnbringer book?
I really enjoyed it. I'm not usually a huge fan of cliffhangers because I want to know what happened, but like, this is pretty sweet and a pretty good cliffhanger to have two gods basically facing off against each other. So I'm super pumped to see how that resolves.
Cool. Well, I guess we'll just keep going. Hey, Paven, what'd you think of this here book?
Best one yet?
Yep. Oh, neat. All right, cool. This is how we're going to do it.
Perfect.
All right, Will, hey, what'd you think of this here book?
I had a more in-depth answer.
Yeah, please.
No, I think this is my favorite one so far because I think every aspect of the Gironite side I really enjoyed. We got like the more personal stories, like from the eyes of the Dawnbringers seeing the Gorgers, horrifying, and then also it zoomed out to these godlike battles. And I thought that was a really cool, like, the transition was done well. It didn't feel super jarring. It was like a little WWE. We made the like joke of, oh my God, is that Kragnos' music? But it was like in a fun way, not like being shocked. The Axian side was a little jarring. I think there's a little bit of pacing issues. But the moments we got with Ionis and Vandus, I thought were really well done. Best one yet, I agree. And the first one, it was all low level, no high stakes. This one was a balance of both, which I feel like we need in AOS.
I echo a lot of what you said. Yes, agreed. This is the best one yet, especially because it's heading in the direction that I have wanted. So, like, if we play back I guess you could call them complaints for the previous books. This starts to does not completely resolve them or like satisfy me, but it is so much closer than the previous ones do. So, like, I that is the trajectory I want to head in. And you know what? In fact, it somehow makes the previous books better because now I know that it was like an upward slope, right? Like it headed in that direction. And now I feel better knowing that I imagine the next one is going to either ramp up or at the very least keep it at this level. And that I'd be fine with that too. So from like a scale or scope level, we're getting closer to that sweet spot for me. So because I'm really into it. I think taken individually, there's so many highlights in this book, so many great moments sort of by themselves. And that's okay. That's enough for me. I'm happy with them to be sort of taken in individual isolation. Maybe the way we go from one to the other, I think we talked about pacing issues, but you know what? Honestly, that's not so necessary to me. It doesn't need to read as like a book's, like a Black Library novel narrative. Oftentimes it does, you're going to have to read with that sort of jumps and starts and ups and downs. And that's also fine. I mean, it'd be cool if we can smooth those out. But that I can live with it. I think thus far, the best moments of the entire Dawnbringers have occurred in this book. The Vandus and Ionis, the council with Ilariel and the group trying to get rid of Kragnos. All great things. And it almost feels bad because there were some really like cool on the boots on the ground, like moments in those previous books too, that I hate. Like in hindsight, I feel like I'm poo-pooing them a little bit. Those are also great too, but it's just, if I had to pick one or the other, I like this type of stuff. And I'm repeating myself. A great campaign books makes you drool over what's coming next. Like all these, so many questions from the listeners are, all right, yeah, cool. Talk about this book, but really what's coming in the next book? Age of Sigmar fans are never satisfied with what's in front of us. We always want to know what the next thing is. And I love when they cater to that baser instinct. You think I wouldn't? I feel like I'm being manipulated a little bit. Don't care. Manipulate me all you want. I love looking forward and keeping that momentum moving forward. A lot of new stuff was introduced here, and I can't wait to see it pay off. And I have nothing else to add. That seems about it. So all in all, I really, really dug this one. Cool. Any other final thoughts before we shut her down? Excellent. In that case, it's time for our reforging. But Sigmar willing, we'll be back soon. Like, subscribe, share, leave a review. Join us on Discord. Drop a tip on our Patreon. Anything you can do will spread the word of Sigmar farther than we can on our own. Chat with us anytime about your thoughts on Twitter at Immortal Realms. Paul, where can they find you online?
At PJ Shard.
Hey, Paven, where can they find you on the internet?
Can't find me on the internet.
Nice. Don't even bother looking. Hey, Will, where can they find you on the World Wide Web?
For now, I'm still on X as at Age of Sever, and I'm also on Blue Sky simply as Sever.
Cool. And I'm Aaron. You can find me on Twitter at DosAsos, and probably a bunch of other places that I won't list here. And you can find all our Mortal Realms shows and content at www.mortalrealms.com. Finn. Guys, I have to paint an army for this weekend. I do not have time to be editing podcast episodes.
This 5-hour podcast.
Yeah.
Only 3.
I'm saying some things that may not be appropriate on here.
Right there, by the way, it didn't even occur to me until right now.
There's 5 on the podcast tonight.
Yeah.
But we get taxed based off of the number of humans on the podcast.
Paul's going for another Patreon split.
Exactly. 1 second.
All right, cool. We've been dancing around the subject for a while. Let's get into the story phase. That's what everybody's here for. Hey, Paul, would you be so kind as to take us there?
I would. Give me 1/2 second. I'm going to pull it up to make sure I read it correctly.
Memorized? Nerd?
No, I don't, because I want to make sure that I'm in the moment.
Blind. Welcome to the Mortal Realms and Age of Sigmar story phase. Grab your hammer so we can clear a path to the cast for your own narratives.
I mean... Fair. You got that. I will take that. I mean, I didn't even have a pun to begin the episode, so I deserve that.
Yeah.
That's all I got to say.
Futhane.
Fuethon.
Fuethan.
Fuethan?